Bomb Squad, where you at? 7 o'clock start, where you at? Come on, man. Yeah, I know my patience, bro. You mean to tell me none of y'all here? Come on, where y'all at, man? Yeah, I know y'all got a show at 7. All right, where your people at? Where your people at?
Yeah, they in New York with you.
All right, come on, sister, sign in. We right here. We live already.
I'm signing in right now. You just cut off my. I'm gonna have to re-download it, but I was just signing into the StreamYard.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right.
Hey, yo, you hear me? I say.
Oh, I'm on mute. My bad. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, see, those are some of the topics that we got to discuss.
What's going on, brother?
I'm waiting on you to come on through, man. 7 o'clock, past 7.
Oh yeah, we getting the links set up right now. They're about to send me the link so we could join.
Okay, the link is already in the chat.
Yep. We about to head through over there right now.
All right, peace, brother. So yeah, what I was saying, I say is these are some of the topics that would change up the audience a little bit. You know, when you put that topic in the title.
Yes.
People like to hear the ratchet shit sometimes.
Absolutely.
So that's me just playing chess. You know what I'm saying?
Got to.
Yeah. That's me playing chess. So you got to bring in some of the ratchetness. That's it. Because people want to hear some realismism.
Peace, y'all.
Peace, Issa, Kween.
Hey. How are y'all?
Good.
Let me turn that on. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Let me send the link to God Energy real quick.
I think I got the phone with him. He working on the link. So I don't know if you put it in it, but go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna send this to him. Give me a second.
All right. Hey, yo, where's your music at, brother?
Mine? It's down. I got. You want me to get it popping?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, hold on. I got you. They no doubt. Let's start off with that. Go with that facts.
Bomb Squad. Bomb Squad.
Am I back?
Yes.
I got the facts, I got the truth. I got the facts, I got the truth. But you got nothing. The shit. Yeah. The sheer velocity of my animosity will probably destroy your philosophy. You crossing me with mediocrity, my full autonomy of my armory will blow veins, blood vessels, and arteries. So don't target me to admonish me, cause honestly, you don't have the mental archery to stop the slaughtering. Possibly you might survive the atrocity, but it's more probably you will be issuing apologies. You lose to my policy of my camaraderie. So follow me. I got a nation of millions, breaking your dealings, forsaking you villains, raising your ceilings, casing your buildings while you chasing your feelings. Bomb Squad, let's go. I got the facts to back me up. What you got? I got the truth to lift me up. What you got? Let's go. I got just stunting and fronting. We embrace the hate that debate facilitates. We erase the hate your base deliberates. Lay waste to the case your point demonstrates. Eliminate, eviscerate what you create or illustrate. It's time to face the fate or the wake of your debate. So you pace in haste and disappear without a trace. But there's no place that's safe from your fake takes. Bad mistakes you make, what a tangle where we weave. When we practice to deceive, what's perceived or believed is achieved by your lead. So I'll proceed to relieve all the deeds of lies that you breathe. What I bleed is from a different creed, a different seed. It difference me from your mind's infancy. Foul tendencies and lack of verbal efficiency. I got the facts to back me up. What you got? What you got? I got the truth to lift me up. What you got? What you got? I got the facts to back me up. What you got? What you got? I got the truth to lift me up. What you got? You ain't got nothing, 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 nothing. Just starting in front of you got a name like Ank, but disrespecting Kimmy. Then you said you're good entertainer with monkey business. If you an atheist Muslim, then we can even listen. Pseudo killers ain't no scholars, just a bunch of critics. It's the reason I'm against Ank, he always lying. Saying the B can do it, but Africa, no science. Is it my fault? You went to Dr. York to get enlightened. Motherland teachers got you shook, got you comedic frightened. How can an indigenous man be a freaking monkey? Then Juju on the side, laughing like it's funny, but won't laugh when they find out she faking religion and African playing around like you with the Muslim spirit. Allah Akbar prophets and now wanna hear it. Faking the fuck, if they find out they gon' get you. Pseudo killers don't the bomb squad, the bigger picture. We got the power of the people, black brother and sister. Ain't calling me a monkey, and all kind of niggas remind me of Uncle Ruckus or a guy on prison. Bomb squad, we the army, the new militia, ready to take the heads off of any PS pseudo killer.
Ashe. Peace. You know we ready.
Yeah. You already know what it is, man. Peace and black power. We got the bomb squad up in the building tonight, and y'all getting ready to get bombed with some of these bomb squad information for real. So sit back and relax. Ashe, I'm gonna let you go ahead and take over because you got the moderating and all of that stuff. So go ahead and take off where you want to go.
Ashe, peace, man.
You can share their screen if they want to share it, right?
Of course.
All right, go ahead, brother.
So of course, man, but today we really here having a conversation sitting around Blackology, man. Just the history of everything black. With our introduction day, you know, we got the sister Issa Kween, God energy here. We finna rock the stage and we finna do our thing, man. It's for all the naysayers, the guys who have the problem with the term black, but then leave you with no other term left to describe people that look like us. So this is going to be a very in-depth, needed conversation that I think, and it's going to be right on time. So to give us the introduction and to pop it all off and let you know a little bit deeper and further, I'll present to you my sister Issa Kween.
Thank you. Peace, everybody. Thank y'all for coming to like the Bob Squad Presents Blackology, one of many, hopefully. I appreciate all of y'all from coming through. And we wanted to do this panel for us to give clarity to how we're using the term black, because I think that there's a big misconception on what we're talking about when we're saying black and black people, and how we're also, you know, connecting these black people to people outside of Africa. The term black, how we relate it to our studies, we are trying to get people to understand that dark skin pigmentation was humanity's ancestral condition. Before environmental adaptation, over thousands of years produced the broad spectrum of human pigmentation that we see, right? But at the same time, for this discussion, it's important to distinguish between black as a modern social political construct and the ancient dark pigmentation and physical traits carried by early humans that we're going to be discussing today. When modern Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa into Asia, into Australia, into parts of Europe, and connecting those islands throughout prehistory, the migrations happened before modern concepts of race was even thought of. So before the colonial census categories, before science attempted to classify people, humanity was already into separate racial politics. When you hear us use the term Black, we are using it differently from the way commonly used in modern racial politics, colonial labels and things of that nature. We're talking about dark pigmentation. We're talking about bone structure. We're talking about your nose, your eyes, like certain phenotypes and characteristics that happens within the Black diaspora that you see going across regardless of pigmentation. Because if you look into America, like we can see light-skinned people with our phenotypes, because it's not just about the pigmentation all the time. And I also want to, absolutely give the acknowledgement to the eugenics conversation, the way white people use how we were already classifying ourselves as a way to take our information and, use it against us. And then on top of using it against us, making like these rigid classifications of who is or who isn't Black to determine who should be slaves. That's not what we're doing tonight. And even when we're talking about those things, the modern forensic science like literally debunked most of what those early Europeans were trying to do with this information. So I want y'all to be very clear, like, yes, when we're having these conversations and we're making these descriptors of people, we know that history too. And it's incorporated into what we're saying when we're saying the things that we're saying. So for a couple of classifications, we're talking about skeletal variations, such as the wider nose, opening of the skull, a more forward projecting jaw, a broad U-shaped palate. None of these are markers for an inferior race, right? They're just markers of adaptation for where these people lived in the time period that they lived in. A wider nose and fuller lips literally evolved to help with breathing in humid environments. So like circulating the heat around your body, like sweat glands, like these are the things that we're talking about. It has absolutely nothing to do with how smart a person is or if they're capable of being captives of some other group of people. Because these environments and did not start, we see these same skeletal features across the prehistoric world, not just across Africa, but among the indigenous peoples of Australia, Melanesia, Southern Asia. And just to be clear, we're not claiming that any of these people are African, right? We're making the distinction between Black that we're talking about and Black people from Africa, Black people from America, Black people in Melanesia, Black people across the world, okay? And we're classifying them again by these phenotypes, by the pigmentation, things like that. So we know that there's a lot of opinions about what is Black and who is Black. So tonight we're going to be focusing on the connection and understanding. We're going to come to an understanding on what Black is and who is classified as Black. Hopefully within my introduction, you got a piece of what I'm talking about. and also connecting the ancient North Africans to their southern cousins using the same descriptors that we're talking about. We're going to discuss ancient Europe, Asia, look closely at the Black populations of people, and finally we're going to discuss the Americas, coming into the America, which tribes were really, classified, that we can classify as Black according to the descriptions that the early colonizers were giving to these people. And also I want to highlight, the very real connection that our grandparents, because we're no longer talking about ancestors, when I'm talking about people that are abolitionists, when I'm talking about the 1700s, 1800s, these are our grandparents, maybe like 6 or 7 grandparents removed, but they are not that ancestral. And their connection to Africa and the Black diaspora as well. So with all of that being said, I said a mouthful. I want to pass that on to my good, brilliant brothers, Ashe and God Energy, so they can absolutely, bring what they wanted to bring to the conversation and, give you a short introduction about what they're going to be talking about. Whichever one of y'all want to go first is good.
You can go ahead, God Energy. I think mine probably might be the least interesting.
Funny,
I doubt it.
We all form like Voltron over here. You already know, bro. But the Blackology thing, right? What really stands out to me is maybe the demonization that comes with it. It's used as a negative in some sort of way, maybe to refer back to, the older scholars and speakers in the community like Bobby Hemmett. And I think that does a great disservice to what Blackology is and should be, right? I don't think it should be equated to some of the statements that brothers like Bobby Hemmett and others have made, which those types of statements that they made were sci-fi, fantasy, pseudoscience. And I think those terms apply perfectly. And we don't need to demonize anything that's associated with us to call those brothers out on brothers and sisters out on where they needed to expand and update themselves, right? So the lens that we filter our data through in the hopes to bring advancement to our people, that is part of Blackology, right? The making of these studies and advancements work for us, our people, the diaspora, right? The colonized, melanated people around the world. That's the beauty of Blackology, right? Blackology would mean the study of Blackness or Black study, which is exactly what we need to inspire us and to uplift our communities. I mean, again, back to it informing the lens that we filter and synthesize this data through. When I believe a Denisovan finding was made in China, they called it Dragon Man. And then they said, this is who the Chinese people are descended from. And we're going to name it Dragon Man, right? Something that's reflective of their cultural motifs and mythology. And they weren't shy about it at all, right? These were the geneticists. These were the anthropologists making a statement, planting a flag going, we have made this scientific discovery. We're going to call it Dragon Man from our culture. And we're going to proclaim that our people specifically are from this lineage. There's no shame in that. Right, the same way that who we call Europeans, they trace their linguistic family of Indo-European, and they take pride in that Indo-European linguistic family, pointing out and highlighting all of the other linguistic families that derive from Indo-European, and going back to the Yamnaya culture, the forebearers of that Indo-European language, and they're not shy about it, right? So with us, Blackology would be that same thing. And I think we are so used to not doing things and behaving in a way that is for the greater benefit of our race and community that we have to be slowly integrated into this world formula that other peoples use to thrive on the world stage, right? So us getting over this hurdle, us getting over this shyness, us getting over this, you know what I mean? This hang up that we have. it is us acclimating to the world stage and the behaviors that most other groups are already involved in, right? So with the studies that we do, we're going to use archaeogenetics, paleogenomics, craniofacial metrics, right? The measurements of the nose and the prognatism of the jaw that the sister was talking about, right? The skull shape being dolichocephalic versus cumbocephalic. All of this is going to inform our cladistics, not phrenology, right? That's associated with the eugenics racial hierarchies, right? The outdated term ethnology has been adjusted, right? And this new science, or more accurate science of cladistics, is what we are engaged in when we bring up the genetics, when we bring up the craniofacial metrics, when we bring up the toolkits that they use. This is involved with cladistics, right? What is cladistics? It divides groups into clades based on their most recent common ancestor and shared derived characteristics. So this is where the genetics and the craniofacial metrics come into play. When you use these characteristics to establish an evolutionary relationship, those characteristics are called synapomorphies, right? So this is what we have been analyzing, and all the data is going to culminate into this. So we identified the physical, behavioral, and genetic traits. And this is how we are classifying, examining, and defining who we call Black people. And even in modern times, right, even if we fast forward from the Paleolithic era, fast forward from 40,000 years ago, what's going on today? These groups across the globe that we classify as Black people, we even have a shared culture. As far and wide as we may be spread, however divergent our genetics have now become, we still have a shared culture, being racial oppression and colonialism, right? The experience we have, the things we go through, how we have to overcome, experience, survive, and thrive in racial oppression and colonialism creates shared experiences. Those shared experiences can be classified as a common culture. So even the fact that we across the globe are racially oppressed creates this common culture and commonality between us that we are classified as quote unquote Black people. And I'll land there.
And that was brilliant, man. I appreciate that. And me, of course, I'm going to revisit African science. Got to come back to that. Talk a little bit more about that. How it was our people who had these original sciences and things of that nature. So we definitely go to speak about that when I get on. And a great part about what you said at first is going to be heavy, and the talk point that's been on my mind, man, that I really couldn't wait to have this, because my study on Black, I'm bringing a little bit more modern. And what I'm observing from my study on Black is that it's us is the reason why we're even here. The conscious community, being conscious, yes, we have pillars within the conscious community in the beginnings. Your John Henry Clark's, your Dr. Ben's, but you even have the brothers like a Professor Grips and things of that nature who, being conscious, was being aware of the racial injustices and these things that you even mentioned, that is the agenda against people that look like us. That's what the original conscious was all about. It's been usurped by these individuals with the Afrofuturism, spaceship talk, all of that mess, Kundalini, chakras taking us into India. It's been usurped. And that's become the new face for quote unquote Black consciousness. When the original Black consciousness started with brothers like Fred Hampton in the Black Panther Party, individuals like your Dr. Benz and your Frederick Clark, Dr. John Henry Clark, who were doing the groundwork, trying to bring the knowledge back to us so we can eliminate all of those Eurocentric talking points when it comes down to cranial structure. Is Egypt Black or white? Who are these people? What was their cultures? So these were literally the building blocks to the conscious community that we sit in today. And if it weren't for those Black people, for that blackity black, we wouldn't be here today. I don't think we would. I know we wouldn't. So I definitely want to highlight that. I want to highlight our more recent ancestors as well. So which one of you brothers and sisters want to go first? Issa Kween with the introduction.
Sorry, I was having a problem with my mic. Give me a second. So the way I kind of have it structured in my mind right now is that I want to start off with the early migrations of Black populations out of Africa, because I want to move into the Green Saharan population that connect the mitochondrial DNA that connects all of Africa together. Because one of the things that kind of irritate me when I'm listening to people have these kind of conversations is trying to isolate the North African population as if they're not all cousins. Right. That happens so often, and we kind of always stay within the Y haplogroups, the male DNA, but like there's just as much female DNA out there that would add a continuous a lineage of mitochondrial DNA that connects North Africa to Central Africa all the way to South Africa. So with that being said, I'm gonna pass this over to the good brother God Energy. Y'all know he already did his his presentation on Out of Africa. So I definitely want to pass that to him. And then if we could, comment where we can comment, add on to where we can add on, we can do that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect. Just
so I'm passing you the mic, God Energy.
All right, we showing slides now.
Yeah. You feel free to share your screen with your slides.
So okay. So do you have my computer in the show? Can you put the computer in the show? Because that's what I'm going to be using to show his slides.
Okay.
I'm backstage.
So you want me to put you on a big screen?
No. If you look backstage, there's another Issa Kween. It says Bomb Squad. There you go. There you go.
That makes sense.
And then give me 2 seconds. I'll share the screen.
Let me go like that. And when they come in and to put us to the side, you on the screen whenever you're ready.
There you go. Do you see me?
Absolutely. Let me take this one down. Put this one up.
Cam down.
We got it. Let me actually.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Give you the whole screen.
There you go.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, with this, right, these are the groups that would be identified as Black. As you can see, they're spread all across the world, right? It's not just in Africa. So what I mainly want to focus on is the group up in Europe, and then secondly, going through South Asia. You know what I mean? And this mainly is going to be told through the C haplogroup and the D haplogroup, right? The C haplogroup is what brings the descendants of basal Eurasians. Basal Eurasians are a group of North Africans who migrate out of North Africa. They are the initial out of Africa expansion. Some of these basal Eurasians stop off in the exposed Arabian Peninsula before it was flooded. In South Arabia, they remain unmixed with Neanderthal. So these are the out of Africa group that do not mix with Neanderthal. Then a portion of them go north and they do mix with Neanderthal. And it is these people that are mixed with Neanderthal that then venture into Europe, becoming the Aurignacian culture, right? And the Aurignacian culture, due to the finding at Goyet in Belgium, they find that is of the C haplogroup. So these peoples are of the C haplogroup. And the C haplogroup, next slide, please. The C haplogroup comes out of Africa, like I just stated, diverges into C1 and C2. And C1 is the path that we're following right now that heads into Europe, becoming the Aurignacian culture, which spreads all the way from Spain through France, through Germany, through Belgium, right, reaching all the way over. And then the C2 haplogroup, that's who spreads through Central Asia, Siberia, and they eventually take that trek across the Bering Land Bridge. Next slide, please. So to help us get an inference for who would represent populations of this C haplogroup, it would be the Aboriginal Australians. So one would look to the Aboriginal Australians of today to get a view of who these Aurignacian first early Europeans were, right? And they would be defined as Black people. So not only did early anthropologists observe that the skeletal remains of the early inhabitants of Britain closely resembled Aboriginal Australians and Melanesians, the genetic data of our modern time completely confirmed that. And before colonialism, up to 46% of Aboriginal Australian males carried the basal C clade, as the slide shows here. But if you follow the migration path in the picture, the graphic shown, you can see that purple representing the places and migration path that these Black people, this C haplogroup, took. Next slide. So the three places that I wanted to highlight was Britain, right over there in the Atlantic, but also southern India, and the Aboriginal Australians. So the Aurignacian people of 40,000 years ago, but also the ancient ancestral South Indians, as well as the Melanesians, are all part of this initial expansion descended from Basal Eurasians out of North Africa, right? And it is the anatomical, genetic, anatomical morphology and material culture, being megalithic stone circles and structures that unify these peoples, this family that migrates. Next slide. But aside from the C haplogroup is their cousin, the D haplogroup. The D haplogroup, which isolates from the DE haplogroup, which is also associated with Afro-Asiatic speakers and North Africa. So before the E haplogroup becomes isolated, it is attached to the D haplogroup as one larger clade, DE, right? So DE splits into the E haplogroup, which we are more familiar with, dealing with Afro-Asiatic, dealing with North Africa, dealing with the Semitic world, but also the sister to the E haplogroup is the D haplogroup, which we could see migrates out of Africa, right, through India into Indonesia and Melanesia and East Asia. And the D haplogroup is associated with Negrito populations, right? So we know that Negritos are always associated with the melanated, aka Black populations of Asia, right? So the ancestors of the Black populations of Asia share a common ancestor with the Afro-Asiatic speaking peoples that we are more familiar with, talking about biblical history. So this is important. Next slide. And the migration path of the D haplogroup exactly avoids these three areas right here that we see highlighted. And these are highlighted because these signify Neanderthal admixture. These are hot spots for Neanderthal admixture, right? This graphic is from the Max Planck Institute, and it charts Neanderthal ancestry across the world, right? So these peoples here, these individuals that still have Neanderthal integration or Neanderthal admixture would still be who we classify as Black people. And under the definition that we have for Black people, it 100% includes individuals with this early Neanderthal admixture, being the Aurignacian peoples, being the South Indian peoples, being the Aboriginal Australian peoples. So having that initial Neanderthal admixture, even though our African brothers and sisters lack Neanderthal admixture, having that Neanderthal admixture does not disqualify you from this characterization and qualification of Black people. Next slide. So some of these Black groups of East Asia would include the indigenous Black people of the Philippines, such as the Eta people. And we can see through the wide nasal aperture, the clear prognatism, the curly frizzly hair that is shown. These are what we would call Black people. And next to the Eta people, sitting on that traffic railing, are the Manik people of Thailand. The Manik people of Thailand, right? So when you look at East Asia, you will find these ancestral Black populations usually on the margins of society, usually the victims of that racial oppression that was mentioned earlier. Next slide. So, and it would be people like the Eta people or the Manik people who were associated with the Khmer civilization that built Angkor Wat, right? The Khmer civilization is the classical megalithic and Copper Age civilization of East Asia, located near Vietnam and Thailand. And in 1923, in his Racial History of Man, which is a hallmark work in ethnology and anthropology, the Harvard University anthropologist and librarian of the Peabody Museum, Roland Barrage Dixon, noted that the ancient Khmer were physically marked by distinctly short stature, dark skin, and curly, even frizzly hair, broad noses, and thick, what he calls negroid lips, right? So even though we may disagree with certain verbiage, these physical characteristics and morphological features are what we have to use to piece together the ancient identity of these peoples, along with the genetic analysis. Next slide. So as well as that, right, clinal patterns of human Y chromosome distributions, and in Italy and Greece is the name of this study. It says here that the A3A2 or AM13 has been found at very low frequencies in some Mediterranean islands. And continuing on, without testing for any specific subclade, haplogroup A in general has been found in a sample from Greeks from Mytilene on the Aegean island of Lesbos, right? What's greatly significant about that documentation in the phylogenetic study is that for years in the Black conscious community, we've seen pictures of coins from Lesbos, the Lesbos coins. And it is what a lot of us use to show the Black and African presence in Greece, right? So now with the modern technology, we also have the genetic analysis to go with these famous coins that we've seen in our community for so many years. So now we can put actual quantifiable genetic data to these coins, taking them firmly out of the realm of anything speculative. And now we can come with concrete evidence, right, to add this to the study of the expansion of Black people. Did you have anything to add here? I know there might have been something with the A haplogroup at all.
Yeah, coming out of and this is going to be in my Green Saharan portion of the conversation, but in the Nilo-Saharan family, that they also have that A3M13 line retained from, and it is retained from these Green Saharan people that were living during the African human period, that, you know, branched off from each other about 50,000 years ago. And you see them migrate into different parts of Europe, of Asia, and literally creating that first migration out of Africa. And some of the people that stay behind, right, ends up being a part of this Nilo-Saharan family, the going into like the Dinka people, the Maasai people, and all of these different people that still shares that M13 gene. So I thought that was very telling of how those people are still connected to their African cousins. So yeah, but I'll talk about it a little bit further as we get closer to my portion.
So next slide. I think that's a perfect segue into the topic of the Green Sahara. Boom, right? Perfectly set up. And this is a map of sites of a group known as the Aterian peoples, right? So the Aterian peoples of North Africa would have been an indigenous African population that was there before the coming of West Eurasians. So before there was any migration into North Africa of any West Eurasian from outside of Africa, the Aterian culture was there. And it is from the Aterian culture that you later see their descendants of Tafarot, right? And Tafarot is a location that we associate with the Ibero-Maurusians. But the red dots there signify early Aterian sites. And then the green dot, then with the black blocking, shows their later descendants and Tafarot sites. So on here, it clearly shows the Aterian and Ibero-Maurusian descendancy and relationship, with the Tafarot site being associated with later Aterian sites of North Africa. And it is with the arrival of West Eurasian and specifically measured West Eurasian mitochondrial DNA, that's when you get the transition from the last Aterians into the first Ibero-Maurusians. And it is actually with the arrival of the West Eurasian genetics that you then see the emergence of the Ibero-Maurusian culture. So if you want to continue, I think this is North Africa and the Green Sahara right here. So I'll let you take over.
No, I actually want to use the other picture that you have, so you can continue. Once I get to the slide that I want to use, I'm going to jump right in. Okay.
No doubt. So continuing right along then to the next slide. When we talk about the Aterians, they also show some of the earliest usage of tanged tools, right? So in this thing, they do a morphometric perspective on stone tool function and actually show that the first usage of projectile weapons is associated with the Aterians, or the Aterians used the same type of tanged tools that were associated with the first projectile weapons, right? So you can look at the Aterians as an identifiable and named North African group that has no West Eurasian admixture. So when we talk about the blackness of North Africa, and if we can specifically name a North African tribe that has no West Eurasian admixture, it would be these Aterian peoples here. Next slide, please. So from the paper, Pleistocene North African Genomes Linked Near Eastern and Sub-Saharan African Human Populations, one of my favorite studies to cite. Next slide, please. They go into the genetics of these Tafarot Ibero-Maurusians, and they carried the E1B1B1A1 haplogroup, which is the haplogroup occurs most frequently in present-day North and East African populations, and that haplogroup is closely related to the E1B1B1B haplogroup that has been reported for Epipaleolithic Natufians and the pre-pottery Neolithic Levantines, right? So these two groups were related in some sort of way. And it says the unsupervised genetic clustering also suggests a connection of Tafarot to the Near East. The three major components that comprise the Tafarot genomes are maximized in early Holocene Levantines, East African hunter-gatherer Hadza from north-central Tanzania, and West Africans, right? So, and it says in contrast, meaning different from present-day North Africans who have a smaller sub-Saharan African component with minimal Hadza-related contributions. So you cannot say that the modern Tunisian, the modern Moroccan, the modern Libyan that we see, and those phenotypes have always been there, and they represent the ancestral North African. No, they do not, right? Because the Tafarot Ibero-Maurusians are best represented as through the early Neolithic Near Easterners, but also East African hunter-gatherers like the Hadza and West Africans. So they're mostly African, right? They are more African than the modern inhabitant of Morocco, Libya, Tunisia today. Right? So these peoples cannot say they have been there the whole time. They cannot say their phenotype and morphological type have been there the whole time. The genetic evidence shows that they are less African than their North African ancestors. Next slide, please. Right. So it says here, the Yoruba Mende Natufians are symmetrically related to two deeply divergent outgroups, 2,000 year before present ancient South African and Umbuti Pygmy, respectively. Right. So this is ancestral African lineage here. It says the statistics are linear under admixture. You would expect Tafaro not to be any closer to these outgroups than Yoruba or Natufians if the two-way admixture model is correct. But however, we find instead that Tafaro, the Ibero-Mauritian North Africans, the Tafaro is significantly closer to both outgroups, being the South African and Umbuti Pygmy hunter-gatherers, than any combination of Yoruba and Natufian, right? So these Ibero-Mauritians were more closely related to South Africans, like Khoisan peoples. They were more closely related to Umbuti peoples. These are the Central African rainforest hunter-gatherers, pejoratively termed pygmies. So it says a similar pattern is observed for East African outgroups, Dinka, Moda, and Hadza. The Dinka, like the sister was saying. So it says these results can only be explained by Tafarot harboring an ancestry that contains additional affinity with South and East African outgroups. So these Ibero-Mauritians, these peoples were way more African than some people like to suggest, like the brother Chief X. By the way, who's been missing? Can we put an APB out? Missing reports out on Chief X. Could someone check on Chief X? Could we get a wellness check on Chief X, please? Because the brother has been MIA, right? So, but we can clearly see why. Next slide, please. So here is a recreation of a Gobi sample, right? These would represent Kifian peoples found at the Gobi location. Kifian peoples are associated with Ibero-Mauritians and Capsian peoples. These are these North Africans. These are these Black North Africans, these Africoid North Africans that some try to report shouldn't be there. But here they clearly are. This forensic reconstruction was done by the University of Chicago and their Project Exploration. These also would have been who were misnomered the Mediterranean race. If you read in early anthropology, early history about North Africa, they say they use the term the Mediterranean race, right? But we can clearly see was a misnomer for this group here that we are talking about that have this South African and Umbuti Central African rainforest hunter-gatherer affinity, right? So you cannot de-Africanize or de-Blackanize North Africa. Next slide, please. And they would have made up this group called the Proto-Afro-Asiatics, right? The early or ancestral Afro-Asiatics. And I think this is where the sister wanted to take over.
Yes, because these Proto-Afro-Asiatics is literally the link between all of these people. And when you don't learn about this specific subset of people, you're able to then say that, yeah, there is no connection between North Africa and the rest of Africa. It's because you're missing this subset of people. Firstly, I want to say that, yes, there is a lineage that split from each other 50,000 years ago. Does not make neither one of those groups non-African. The split happened in Africa. So they split into two separate dark-skinned African groups. Okay, that's one. And with these, I'm going to call them the evacuations, because literally they're moving out of the Green Sahara because we're transitioning into a lesser humid period. We're transitioning into basically the Sahara Desert. And in this time period, then the ones that goes north and east turns into the Afro-Asiatic macro family. The ones that go central to the central belt turns in, is the Nilo-Saharan macro family. And then you have the west and south evacuation going into the Niger, Congo, and macro family.
Also called the Bantu expansion.
Right, which is going to be called the Bantu expansion. I'm going to get to northern, eastern Saharans, the ancient Caspians, and the Ibero-Maurusians. They go north towards the Mediterranean and east towards the Horn of Africa. These are the Berbers. These are the Somalis. These are the Oromos. These are the ancient Egyptians or Kemetic people. These people are absolutely still related, even though they're migrated. The Cushitic, the Berber, the Semitic branches, that Y haplogroup of the EM78, the deep ancestral genetic markers isolated from ancient Saharan rock shelters like the Takara's Kori in Libya. So all of these people are migrating within these same places, but at the same time, they all have this rooted history within these two African groups of people that split 50,000 years ago. When you get into the Central Saharans and you get into the Kithians, what my brother already kind of spoke about, that I'm going to briefly go past. It goes east into the Nile Basin, south into the Rift Valley, Nilotic peoples like the Dinka, the Maasai, the Nilo-Saharan family, like the Y haplogroup A3M13 that I was talking about earlier when he brought up that same genome for the Mediterranean people, right? And then when we get into southern and southwestern Sahara, early West African agricultural cultures, the south and southwest and west into the tropical forest and the West African river basin. These are your Bantu people, the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Zulu, the Shona. And into the Niger-Congo family, which is basically the parent branch of all the Bantu languages, right? So, and this is coming out of the Y haplogroup, the EM2, and it's initiated the Bantu expansion, carrying the farming and the ironworking down to the southern Africa. So again, connecting this northern ancestral these northern ancestral people with the southern people. And then we get into the Saharan Chadic pastoralists, and which would also kind of be called the hybrid zone. The southward into Lake Chad Basin, the Fulani, the Hausa, the Maasai people, and these Afro-Asiatic branches surrounded by the Niger-Congo language branches. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the mitochondrial DNA connections as well, because we kind of do stay within the male line. So when we get into the mitochondrial line, the haplogroup L and all of its subclades, the L0 to L6, you find that all throughout Africa. This is literally the subclades that connect all of, the African people, because when you're tracking the mitochondrial DNA, you're tracking it for both the male and the female, and not just the male. The L subclades dominate Neolithic peoples like the Dinka, the Maasai, the Niger-Congo groups, the Bantu speaking. It proves it gives it gives reverence to the unbroken maternal line going back to the Green Holocene era. For example, the subclade L3E5 originates from the ancestral population that crossed the Green Sahara about 10,000 years ago, and it's shared between populations around Lake Chad and the indigenous Berber women of North Africa. And in the sub-Saharan, you have the L-core, you have haplogroups LO, L1, L2, and L3. Some of the oldest maternal lines present in Africa, over 100,000 years old. And they go east into the Nile Basin, south into the Central and West African forest, into South and West Central and West African forests. And the Neolithic people, again, the Dinka, the Bantu groups, Yoruba and Zulu, and the Nilo-Saharan and Niger-Congo families, the early pottery, the river technologies that they use, it's a shared culture. And then also the Chad Basin, the haplogroup in the Chad Basin, the haplogroup L3E5, it goes into the Central Saharan oasis with the mobile hunter-gatherers during the Green Sahara period, and went outward as the lake decreased. And you get their descendants of the Hausa, the Massa, and localized Central African Sahel populations. And I'm going to come out of God Energy's presentation really quickly. And then I want to show this, one of my little slides that I did come up with, right? So just make it clear on how these groups are, who is sharing which L haplogroups, right? So you have in the Nile Valley, which encompasses the Badarian, the Nakada, the Kush, and the Kemite. You have the L3, L2, and L5. Well, look where else you find the L2, L3, L5. You find it in the Horn of Africa. You find it in West Africa. You find it in Central Africa, Southern Africa, and you find it in Northern Africa. The L3, you find the L3 and L5 is. You find it in the Nile valleys, but you also find it in the Horn, you find it in the West, and you found it in the North, and in the L1, you find it in this Green Sahara, but also in Central Africa. So what I'm bringing all of this information to basically show you that through the maternal haplogroups, you do see these groups of people also being connected to one another as well. And just to go into some of the West African haplogroups, the L1B1A6, dating about 14,000 years ago, West African Sahel, that would include Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Cameroon, Northwest African populations in Morocco and Tunisia. And these people goes west into the Niger-Congo Basin and into the ancient oasis corridors into the Maghreb. This clade is mobile and even across into the they even crossed into southern Spain about 3,500 years ago. So you see that within the maternal haplogroups, you see all of these connections with these early people, and going into the Eurasian people groups as well, because the L haplogroup is that group that migrated out of Africa, while some also stayed behind. So with that being said, I'm gonna go back to God Energy.
Hold on, could you keep please, that slide right there, that undoes the arguments of so many people. First, that one slide, this one slide right here, is a debate in itself, is a debate winner in itself, right? It doesn't get more clear than this. It shows the haplogroups and the clades associated all across Africa, linking the Egyptians, the Cushites, to West Africans, to Central Africans, to South Africans. So it completely destroys the argument and conversation about Egyptians not being African. It doesn't get more clear than this. And off of the L3 subclade, you have the N haplogroup, right? The N haplogroup is the direct daughter to the L3 subclade. And in 2019, scientists analyzed ancient human remains from a Neolithic site in the Central Sahara, specifically Libya, right? This is North Africa, and identified a very rare, this is a basal mitochondrial N lineage. So basal is at the root. So the root of the N mitochondrial lineage was found in Libya. So this shows a deep-rooted branch existing historically in North Africa rather than arriving exclusively through recent Eurasian migration, right? So we associate the L3 haplogroup with being an African haplogroup, but the N haplogroup, because it is a direct daughter branch of the African L3 lineage, the biological blueprint for the N haplogroup is deeply rooted in African evolutionary history as well. And in a study done by Quintana, Mercy, and others, they have suggested that the N haplogroup most likely originated in East Africa before the out of Africa migration. And the molecular evidence indicates that the haplogroup N is found across Africa from east to west. And that's from a study done by M. Boulay and Villeroy. The study is called Fossil Man, printed by the Dryden Press in New York. And the majority of carriers of the N haplogroup in Africa live in sub-Saharan Africa. So the root of that N haplogroup was found in Libya and North Africa, but the majority of the carriers are in sub-Saharan Africa, similar to what the sister just showed with the parent of the N haplogroup, the L3. So it says the populations carrying the N haplogroup belong to almost all of the language families spoken in Africa, including Cushitic, Nilo-Saharan, Khoisan, Niger-Congo, and Semitic, very similar to what the sister just presented on this slide about the L3. So the L3's distribution uniformly throughout Africa also mirrors L3's daughter, or the L haplogroup in general, not just L3, but the L haplogroup in general being found uniformly throughout Africa mirrors its daughter, the N haplogroup, which is found throughout Africa, including groups like the Hadza, the Datoga, the Mozambique, Nigerians, Guineans, the Burunds, Ethiopians, Kenya, Sudan, and Tanzania. And this was found in studies, phylogenetic studies by Tishkoff, Pereira, Watson, Rosa, and Gonder. So when we talk about the Africanity of North Africa, all of the evidence shows and suggests that North Africa is sub-Saharan Africa, and that term sub-Saharan should really be done away with, because there was no distinction between the Saharan African and the quote-unquote sub-Saharan African.
Thank you for that. Exactly. And I just wanted to add these last two because I got to talk about the men's real quick. The Y-DNA, I don't know if you are going to get into it, but the Y-DNA of the EN293, the Egyptians and the Horn, the African populations, are also found in the Khoisan in Namibia and South Africa, and pre-Bantu pastoralist migrations that brought livestock and economics to South Africa. And then we also have the Y-DNA of E-V22 and E-V32 of the Nile Valley and Egyptians, and you find that in East African, Fulani, and Neolithic borderland, the Eastern Sudanic agricultural expansion into the Sahel belt. So even, and you know, I've heard conversations about how the Kushite people and the Kemetic people aren't necessarily all the way, you know, related. And it's like, yeah, they are. And right. we gotta, you know, blackify these people.
I mean, that,
and that's the point of the Black 101. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You know, to say that is completely ridiculous, right? That the Egyptians and Nubians or Cushitic people are unrelated. And like you pointed out with the connection with the E haplogroup being found in Northeast Africa, but as well as South Africans, you find that same thing with the A haplogroup that is associated with the Khoisan speaking peoples. You find the A haplogroup in East Africa as well, like you were pointing out with the Dinka Sudanese. But not just that, the click languages are also still found in East Africa as well. So you have East African hunter-gatherer groups, I believe like the Hadzabe and the Hadza, that still speak click languages. So you see all of this interplay. And actually, the phylogenetics actually suspects that the A haplogroup originated in North Africa, possibly amongst the Aterian type peoples, or possibly carried by Aterian type peoples, migrated through East Africa first, then into South Africa to be found as the Khoisan peoples, right? So this conversation and connection between East Africa, the Nile Valley, and South Africa, it has a lot of deep history, and the details to that connection people are just so largely unfamiliar with, which has allowed, you know, the modern colonialists and then people getting that colonial education to falsely have this separation and barrier between East Africans and North Africans and, you know, the rest of South Africa and Central Africa.
Absolutely. So if we're done with this slide, I'm going to go back to yours because my other slide is for a later conversation.
No problem.
So, oh, sorry. We're going to continue. There you go. And are you done with this map as well? Because I'm done.
I actually am.
Okay.
So the next slide. So this was a paper submitted to academia.edu. And it's titled Proto-Dravidian Catalhuyuk, right? Catalhuyuk, like Vinca and Ubaid, might be Dravidian, right? And the Dravidians are a group of Black peoples in largely in South India. They are the ancestral peoples there. They are the peoples who started the Indus River Valley civilization of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. So that script is being deciphered using the Dravidian language. And the Dravidians are descended from the ancient ancestral South Indians who would have been of the C haplogroup, right? So the C haplogroup that migrated out of Africa, one branch into Europe as the Aurignacians, then another branch into South India and Melanesia. Those ancient ancestral South Indians who carried the C haplogroup later become the Dravidians, right? With a little bit of Indus periphery Klein admixture. So what this is pointing out is that the Nostratic Natufian divergence might be Dravidian, Catalhuyuk, and the Vinca. Catalhuyuk is an early site in Anatolia, aka Turkey. And what the slide is showing is that the Proto-Dravidian term like Perud and its association with childbirth was similar to the eagle symbol and the iconography that form a linguistic basis for the Catalhuyuk bird scene. And also the images of the bull, right, which they say interpreted translate to homonym from the Proto-Dravidian word cod, meaning bull or cow, right, and the Proto-Dravidian word kond for hill. Next slide. Right. So they're also giving cognates, right? Proto-Dravidian cognates for mar, the term horn, for the Tamil word kud EP, right? That kud word for mark or sign, which they are connecting to the word for writing, connecting it to the Vinca script, which is contemporary with the Ubaid period. So the Ubaid is talking about the Sumerians, not the Akkadians that came later, not the Gutians of Larsa and Lagash, those Gutians being used to usually speak against the Blackness of Sumeria. When you hear someone who's trying to deny the blackness of Sumeria, they usually bring up Larsa. They usually bring up Lagash. They usually bring up Gutians. When you talk about Ubaid period Sumeria, those are the foundational Sumerians who are different from the Gutians of Larsa and Lagash, right? So this is the significance of this paper, that the blackness that existed in Sumeria is most likely associated with Dravidian ancestry, and the Dravidians were known to have migrated through Arabia into India. So what this paper is pointing out is a connection between the Çatalhöyük site in Anatolia, Turkey, and Ubaid Sumer with Dravidians. So this would also firmly ground the Dravidian presence in Anatolia, Turkey, right? So these Dravidians of South India, they did not originate there. They were not just confined there. Their morphological type of the Dravidians did not just exist in India, even though we associate them largely there today, right? So there's been extensive work done on the connection between Sumerian and Dravidian, specifically the Dravidian language of Tamil, right? Dr. Laganatha demonstrates an extensive list of lexical correspondences between Sumerian and Tamil. And the key thing here that I want you guys to take away is that Sumerian and Tamil are both agglutinative languages, meaning that the root word stays the same and suffixes and prefixes are added on, as opposed to English, which is an Indo-European language. It is not agglutinative. So if we want to change the context of a word, the word stand, and we would put it in past tense, goes to stood. The root changes, right? In that root word, the AND in stand changes to OOD in stood, right? That is not how agglutinative languages work. So constructive linguistics is a tool designated for root mutation languages like English, being of the Indo-European family. And it is not the best tool for agglutinative languages like Sumerian and Tamil. And we know for the longest they have put Sumerian as a classification of language isolate. And it is due to the inaccuracy that constructive linguistics has as a tool, because constructive linguistics was a tool made for a different type of language and language family, which has different rules. So when you apply evolutionary linguistics from Tamil to Sumerian, this fits better. And it answers a lot of questions, or it solves a lot of problems that scholars have had with Sumerian. So this data is better at answering the lingering questions that they haven't been able to solve yet about Sumerian, why they classified it as a language isolate. But more and more research is coming out and being done that is slowly taking Sumerian out of that classification, right? So this handles why cuneiform is difficult to translate, because it was adapted by the Semitic-speaking Akkadians from the non-Semitic Sumerians. So it is clunky because it was a script that has characteristics for a completely different type of linguistic rule set. So for centuries, scholars have been trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? But those that are on the cutting edge linguistics that are starting to make the connections between Sumerian and Dravidian, like Dr. Laganatha, they have pointed out hundreds of cognates. They've pointed out that Sumerian and Tamil share vowel distributions, cumulative infixes, syntactic structure, and sentence structure, right? So Sumerian is finding its home, and it's coming out of that category of language isolate. Next slide, please. But continuing on with that, it brings me to the Etruscans, right? And you can see how the Etruscans depicted themselves here. They are what we would call a black peoples. The Etruscans were in Italy, and their early culture was known as the Villanova culture, coming from around 900 BCE. Next slide, please. So here are more pictures of the Etruscans showing their morphological type, lending to the cladistics that we are doing on these peoples here. And Herodotus said that they were descendants of exiles from Anatolia, Turkey, for the kingdom of Lydia. And this is in the Histories, chapter 1, book 94. Right? Hellenicus says that they were from Thessaly and came to Etruria via the Adriatic. Thessaly is in the Balkans, right across from Anatolia, right? And this source is from Dionysius of Halicarnassus. The book is called Roman Antiquities, book 1, chapter 19. So if one was to travel from Anatolia to Italy, you would have to pass through Thessaly, right? So from Herodotus and Hellenicus's report, the origin of the Etruscans seemed to be rooted somewhere to the east, somewhere near Anatolia, Turkey. And remember, the last article that I brought up showed what Çatalhöyük is associated with. So these Dravidians were in Turkey. So this is the point that I'm getting at. And Sten Canal published in the Journal of Royal Asiatic Society that the Etruscans and Dravidians were related. Right? So someone has already put forth that the Etruscans were related to the Dravidians. And Wartenberg, right, the linguist Wartenberg points out that Dravidians introduced certain sounds into Indo-Europeans, and the Etruscans did the same with the Sardinians and Sicily and etc. Right? So both the Dravidians and the Etruscans introduced certain sounds into the Indo-European language families that they came to be surrounded by, right? And you could read more about the Dravidian influence on Indo-Aryan in the work, The Influence of Proto-Dravidian on Indo-Aryan Phonology, Morphology, and Syntax, right? So Sten Canal shows that Dravidians and Etruscans had the same vowels, identical verbs, identical suffixes, and syncopation. And those identical suffixes, remember I pointed out that Sumerian and Tamil, or Sumerian and Dravidian languages, are agglutinative languages, meaning the root word doesn't change, you simply add on suffixes and prefixes. And Sten Canal also showed that Dravidians and Etruscans have identical suffixes. And these suffixes are important to Etruscan because guess what? Etruscan is also an agglutinative language. So Sumerian, Dravidian, and Etruscan are all agglutinative languages, pointing to their common ancestry, pointing to their affinity with each other. And on a cultural level, on an anthropological level, the Etruscans have a mother goddess, Uni, which is cognate with the Dravidian mother goddess, Ani. So we can even get into their theological system, into their culture, and see that they carry similarities as well, right? So in the work, The Etruscan Timeline, a recent Anatolian connection, right? Francesca Brizzagelli, right? They have established a genetic link between Anatolia, that's Turkey, and ancient Etruria. So they have established the genetic link between Anatolia, where Çatalhöyük was, where the Dravidian Çatalhöyük was, right? And Etruria, by way of a complete mtDNA genome sequencing. So this is mitochondrial sequencing of an autochthonous Tuscan branch of haplogroup U7A2A, right? And side note, even the Tuscan cattle breeds share mtDNA, also similar to Near Eastern breeds. So not only did the humans in Etruria, right, the human Etruscans share mitochondrial affinity to Anatolia, the female cattle breeds that the Etruscans had shared mitochondrial DNA with Near Eastern breeds. Right. So this shows even in the hermeneutics, even the culture, right? The way that their subsistence lifestyle, the cattle also showed this affinity to the Near East. Cattle most likely being brought with those migrants from Anatolia, Turkey, right? It says genomic evidence establishes Anatolia as the source of the European Neolithic gene pool, right? So Aka Omrak and others have stated modern day Sardinian populations instead of modern day Anatolian populations are genetically more similar to the people that drove the Neolithic expansion into Europe, right? So the Neolithic peoples that brought agriculture, right, that brought that type of living into Europe, those Neolithic peoples share genetic affinity closer to modern day Sardinians than they do to modern day Turkic peoples, right? Speaking to the population replacement, speaking to how foreign the phenotypes are of the modern day peoples of Turkey. So if you're trying to look and go, God energy, the modern population of Turkey does not look like these depictions of the Etruscans you have on the screen. That's because the modern day peoples of Turkey do not represent the individuals of Çatalhöyük, Turkey anyway. So you cannot use the phenotypes and morphology of the modern day Turk to try to argue against what I'm putting forth, because the modern day Turk does not represent the ancestral Neolithic Anatolian farmer. That's what the evidence suggests. So when we make this connection between the Turkic population of the Neolithic of Çatalhöyük with the Dravidians, and then linking that with the Sumerians and Etruscans, the genetic evidence supports it and the linguistic evidence supports it, right? And remember, these Dravidians are of this Black family, and we can clearly see here that these Etruscans, who are most likely descended from Anatolian Dravidians, fall within the confines of this quote-unquote Black family as well. So that was a lot there. We just linked the Neolithic Anatolians of Çatalhöyük with the Ubaid Sumerians, with the Dravidians, with the Etruscans. And I know that might be a tough pill to swallow, but the genetics and linguistics is what you're standing up against. It's not me saying this. It's the genetics saying this. It's not me saying this. It's the linguistics saying this. Next slide. So all of these peoples would have what we call Neanderthal introgression. And these peoples here, right, carry different phenotypes. And the phenotypes of these highly melanated individuals, we can see the phenotypes of the first woman there. She carries what we would call East Asian phenotypes. The woman in the middle carries what we would call Scandinavian phenotypes. And the last woman pictured there would carry what we call Anatolian farmer phenotypes. And it is the lightening of these phenotypes that would give us what we would call non-Black peoples today. Right. So if you lighten up the first woman, we would call her East Asian, and we would classify them as not Black. If you lighten up the woman in the middle, she would look like Scandinavians, whom we would call not Black. And when you lighten up the woman at the end, she would represent these Anatolian farmer types, whom we would call not Black. But you can see that the origins, the phenotypes of these individuals that we would call not Black, at some point were rooted and had their origins in groups that we would call Black. Next slide, please. And this gets into the SLC genes. And as a lot of us know, the SLC 24A5 and SLC 45A2, responsible for pale skin in individuals we would call quote unquote Europeans. The 24A5 regulates calcium in melanocytes as a major factor in light skin pigmentation. The 45A2, known as the depigmenting allele, right, has the F347 of the RS polymorphism in this genome, and it is a second important factor in light skin in West Eurasians. And then another gene, the HERC2 or the OCA2 gene, causes blue eyes, and it contributes to light skin color and blonde hair. Next slide, please.
Can I just add, when it comes to the OCA2, it also it's also different from the SLCGs because of the hair, right? The way the hair is, if you look at the Asian population, how thick their hair still is, even though it's very straight, as opposed to the people that are coming from the SLC, their hair is straight, but it's very thick. It's like these two things are doing the same thing when it comes to the hair, but the thickness that was able to be kept in Asia is coming through the OCA2 That's all I wanted to add. But yes, I'll go to the next.
I also I want to.
Oh yeah, do you think?
Yeah, while we here, man, you know, I've been quiet, just sitting back. I want to join the class. You know, while we here, I definitely want to show a couple things, if you don't mind, before we segue.
I'll come out.
Why we're on Black Europe, why we're on Blacks in Europe, right? So, real quick, I'm going to show a couple things, just a couple things real quick, because this is going to go into what I'm even talking about, just to support the brother's claim, man. I'm going to talk about Blacks in Europe. So I'm of course going to start off with just identifying the Koshian people, were an ancient people who inhabited the kingdom of Koshia along the east coast of the Black Sea, modern day Western Georgia, renowned Greek mythology as the homeland of the Golden Fleece of the Media. They were historically celebrated for their advanced Bronze Age and Iron Age metallurgy. Let's go in a little bit more deeper about these people. The true ethnic origins of the Koshian people remain debated, but modern scholars widely consider them to be a federation of early Kartvelian-speaking tribes. They are viewed as the ancestral foundation of the modern Laz and Mingrelian peoples. The Herodotus account. The 5th century BCE Greek historian Herodotus famously described the Koshians as a dark-skinned, kinky-haired people of Egyptian descent. He noted their shared cultural practices with Egyptians, such as the working of linen and the practice of circumcision. Modern historians and anthropologists debate whether this reflects actual North African migration or is an ancient observation of indigenous Caucasian populations adapted to the human subtropical environment. But let's take a step further, bring this down, right? So I'm going to share this screen. We'll go a step further. Go into a source a little bit. Read this. Bang. So, of course, we'll start with the coinage. And we see right here on the left, my screen should be up, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we see on the Tenedos Islands right here on their coinage, you see the features. On the right, you see the Macedonian. In the Macedonian coinage, we see the quote-unquote Negroid features or the black features, if that's nicer for you. God Energy showed this before. On the coins of the island of Lesbos, we see more of the blackety black features. On the left, we have the Lady of Cyprus, 490 to 465 BCE, more of the blackety black features. So let's read a little bit more coinage, of course. Armenia. The name Armenia may be the result of the Persian or Greek confusion of the Armenian or Aram kingdom. Caucasus. I want to go straight to the Caucasus. The Caucasus is the ancient region at the eastern end of the Black Sea, south of the Caucasus Mountains in the western part of modern Georgia. It is consistent of the Valley of the Faces, modern Riuni River. In Greek mythology, Caucasus was the home of the Media and the destination of the Argonauts, a land of fabulous wealth in the domain of sorcery. Caucasus was later colonized by Malaysian Greeks, to whom the native Koshians supplied gold, slaves, hides, linen cloth, agricultural produce, and such shipbuilding material as timber, flax, pitch, and wax. The ethnic composition of the Koshians, as described by Herodotus, was Egyptian. Remnants of the army of Senusret I, in the Greek, of course, they said Sesostris, who was the second king of the 12th dynasty and had ascended to the throne after the murder of his father, Amenemhet the first. After the 6th century BC, they lived under the nominal suzerainty of Persia and passed into the kingdom of Mithridates in the that would be 6th century BCE. First century BCE. And then under the rule of Rome, they united with the Lazica in the 4th century AD and constituted an important butter state between the Sasanian, Persian, and the Byzantine empires. In the late 18th century AD, Caucasus was attached to Absagia, which in turn was incorporated into Russian Georgia. Herodotus, let's go over his whole claim. He says, passing over these monarchs, therefore I shall speak of the king who reigned next, whose name was Sesostris. He is the priest said, first of all, proceeded in a fleet of ships of war from the Arabian Gulf along the shores of the Erythraean Sea, subduing the nations as he went until he finally reached the sea, which could not be navigated by reason of the shoals. Hence he returned to Egypt, where they told me he collected a vast armament and made a progress by land across the continent, conquering every people which fell in his way. In the countries where the natives withstood his attack and fought gallantly for their liberties, he erected pillars on which he described his own name and country, and how that he had reduced the inhabitants to subjugation by the might of his arms. Where on the contrary, they submitted readily and without struggle. He inscribed on the pillars, in addition to these particulars, an emblem to mark that they were the nation of women that is unwarlike and effeminate. And it is whether he traversed the whole continent of Asia, whence he passed on into Europe and made himself master of Scythia and of Thrace, beyond which countries I do not think his army extended its march. For thus far pillars which he erected are still visible, but in the remoter regions they are no longer found. Returning to Egypt from Thrace, he came on his way to the banks of the river Phasis. Here I cannot say with any certainty what took place. Either he, on his own record, detached the body of truth from his main. So basically, he's right here. He's explaining the people. He's saying that he came into what he believes were an Egyptian people, a black people. This is his claim, Herodotus' claim, happened over here in the Caucasus. I mean, the Caucasian people in the Caucasus Mountains. So last, before I give it back to God, go ahead, brother.
No, it's pronounced Caucasus.
Caucasus, yeah, I'm saying it, Caucasus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the Caucasus, but these are Caucasian people.
And it's in the Caucasus, yes. They're called Colchians, and they're located in the Caucasus. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And these are just a few images of these Colchian people as well. Few images of them right here on the left. Actually, I had a better.
In modern day, they call them Abkhazians. They call them the Black Abkhazians.
We have a little bit better representation of them as well right here, where it speaks about them more. Right. And you'll be able to see them a little bit closer. And you'll see right there, you can just see their the features in these peoples and how they looked right there on the right. You know, what was it? You said Abkhazian, yeah, Afro-Abkhazian, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That exactly is the term that's being utilized here. And within this, they're describing them, how these Afro-Abkhazians, excuse that, photo of the Afro-Abkhazians from the Caucasus. Yep. And some believe that they were enslaved people who were transported to a village in the 17th century during the slave trade to work specifically on the citrus plantations. It's a theory that could be true, as the Abkhazia were indirectly under Turkish rule under the Ottoman Empire for at least 300 years, beginning in the late 1500s. The discrepancies with this theory are, geographically speaking, Abkhazia is a difficult area to reach, and it's unclear if Abkhazia was technically under Ottoman rule, but given context clues of the region during the time, bordering country Armenia was under Turkish rule. Historians believe that the enslaved were through via Egypt, which was also under Turkish rule at the time. Egypt served as a slave trading center during this time, which supports the theory that people of African descent were brought over as slaves. So we even have this, quote, this black population, like I was highlighting, in the Caucasus Mountain. I'm gonna talk more about Africans on the move into Europe when it's my turn. But since you was right there speaking about Turkey and all that, I want to slide that in.
Yeah. And Herodotus was saying that it's not just because the Colchians were dark-skinned with woolly hair, right? Which you're not going to get woolly hair just from being in the sun. White people don't get woolly hair just from being in the sun. So it can't be explained as a group of Indo-Europeans who lived in sunlight, then they just started looking different. No, it's a completely different group of people than Indo-Europeans. So he said it's because they practiced baptism and circumcision, one of the first peoples to practice baptism and circumcision, which at that point the Egyptians and Ethiopians were known for. And Herodotus states that he suspects that the Colchians introduced circumcision to the Levantine peoples, and that it is through the Colchians that the Levantine populations even learned circumcision, not from some Abrahamic covenant. right? So which I also thought was very interesting. Those Colchians also being central figures in the Argonautica, like was mentioned, they were a central theme in the Argonauts. And the preamble to that Argonautica, some suspect was the inspiration for the story of Abraham and his sacrifice of Isaac, because in the preamble of the Argonautica, you have another king whose name starts with an A, who sacrifices his son at the behest of a god. A four-legged animal gets caught in a bush, just like the Abraham story, and that four-legged animal happens to be the sheep with the golden fleece, right? And that's how that golden fleece ends up in Colchis. So that was actually a dope little interjection there.
I appreciate that, brother. And that's how to get a bottom up for that. So you can definitely go ahead and share the screen up again. It's the Queen. It'll take us right to the format. I think that's the right one.
Got you. Give me 2 seconds. Let me share my screen. Dropping bombs for yourself is diabolical, by the way.
Hey.
But do you think, brother? I ain't even mad at you. Who else gonna drop it?
No.
Give me 2 seconds. Got energy outside.
Okay, I see. When you're ready, I'll put it up.
Damn it. Are we still here? Or are we moving to the next slide?
We could move on.
Okay.
We can move on to the next slide. Yeah. So, it was through the spread of agriculture, right? When we see the invention and the spread of agriculture, this is along the time where we see the spread of these types of genes, where we see the mass expansion of these lighter skinned peoples, right? So this is a depiction of the Fertile Crescent during that Neolithic time. It's showing the corresponding areas of agriculture and the corresponding areas of cattle domestication, right? That same cattle domestication that we were talking about that corresponds with Anatolian populations and Etruscan populations. But it also is very integral and essential to the story of the spread of light skin. And actually the catalyst for light skin, we actually see associated with agriculture, right? Not just UV zones, not just areas of radiation. Next slide, please. So it is the production of vitamin D, right? It's correlated with the production of vitamin D and the need for sunlight to get through the layers of skin for that vitamin D production. So when you're living in zones where the UV radiation is high, you definitely have the creation and production of melanin, right? The creation and production of melanin to protect you from the harmful UV radiation, and you're eating enough of the proteins to produce vitamin D and synthesize vitamin D, right? But when you leave those hot areas and you also have a lack of proteins in your diet, right? Once you switch from a high protein diet like the hunter-gatherer diet, once these hunter-gatherers move into colder zones, then these hunter-gatherers get introduced to agriculture. They are eating less protein because their diet is now going from primarily meats to primarily agricultural, that like wheat and grains and things like that. So the proteins are not producing enough vitamin D. So when you live in those lighter areas, you have a lack of UV radiation and a lack of proteins. This is what catalyzes the mutation in those genes to produce light skin. Next slide, please.
And I also wanted to add as well, like within these groups of people, is also the adapting to the consumption of milk as well, that also help these groups of people that that replenished a lot of that vitamin D, because let's be honest, like it was a bone deficiency when you can't get these proteins into your body. And in being able to get this adaptation for milk consumption is what replenishes a lot of that vitamin D, and also helps with childbirth, because at that time it was like a high infant mortality rate and a high maternal mortality rate because of the bone structure of these women that weren't able to get the vitamin D from the sun that they were supposed to be getting. So I just wanted to add that. You said next slide, right?
Yeah, but what you bring up is important, because you see the correlation with lactose intolerance, right? The more heavily melanated you are, lactose intolerance is associated with those demographics, and those demographics, the morphology and the genetics would suggest your closer ancestry to hunter-gatherer basal human populations who would have been eating more proteins. So lactose intolerance in melanated peoples is an indicator that you're really supposed to be eating more proteins. And those whose morphology is acclimated to lighter skin, they are tolerant to lactose because they bear the features of people who are supposed to be drinking milk, getting vitamin D that way. So your skin color is correlated with your lactose tolerance, which is correlated with your protein intake, right? None of this has anything to do with eugenics, but all of this has to do with the study of melanin and blackness, and is scientifically rooted and grounded. And we should not be shy about talking about and studying these things. Talking about and studying these things does not make us black versions of the KKK, right? We are just staying up to date and abreast of scientific discoveries that have to do specifically with our demographics. And there's nothing wrong with that. So this slide here shows, the map of UV radiation versus skin tones. And you can see individuals that are in high UV radiation areas that eat agriculture, which is in the middle, they have their dark skin because of the high UV radiation there. But if you go to the level above, right, you see individuals in low UV radiation zones, but there's a difference in skin color from the individual that has a high protein fish diet. He is still dark, as opposed to the two people on the right of him that have agricultural diets who are very pale skinned. This is why the Aurignacian peoples and the Paleolithic Europeans still had dark skin, and moving into those low UV radiation zones of Central Europe did not automatically make those hunter-gatherers pale skinned. You didn't see an automatic change to these people having pale skin, because those light-skinned individuals didn't start dominating Europe until 6,000 years ago. So it took 34,000 years for Europeans to become light-skinned. Europeans were dark-skinned for 34,000 years. Why? Because they had a hunter-gatherer, high-protein diet lifestyle. So you cannot now accept when someone explains light skin simply coming from migrating to a zone of low UV radiation. No, because the very European hunter-gatherers disproved that point. What it is moving into a low UV radiation zone combined with a highly agricultural and grain-based diet. Next slide, please. Which brings us to the Melanesians, right? A group here that we've mentioned, we've identified as Black. We've connected the Melanesians with being related to the ancient ancestral South Indians, who are the ancestors of Dravidians. We've also connected the Melanesians to the Aurignacian Paleolithic European peoples, right? One of the major clades of the Melanesians is the M haplogroup and the S haplogroup. They are related to the Aboriginal Australians of Oceania, who carried the C haplogroup, right? So the Melanesians and Oceanic peoples are represented by the M haplogroup, the S haplogroup, and the C haplogroup largely. And they meet all of the morphological classifications of quote unquote Black people. Next slide. The significance of this, right? And it says, binary polymorphisms reshape and increase resolution of the human Y chromosome haplogroup tree, right? By Tatiana M. Carafet and others. And it says, recently a sublineage of haplogroup C was found to be restricted to Native American populations, while branch C4, right, or CM347 was observed only in Australia. So like I had mentioned earlier, the C haplogroup, right, coming out of Africa, the C1 clade is associated with the Arignacians, the Indians, and the people of Australia. But the C2 clade migrates through Central Eurasia, Siberia, into the Americas. So when you talk about the Blackness that existed in the Americas, it is coming from this C haplogroup family. It is coming from the Melanesians. And it is interesting that the pre-Olmec civilization known as the Makoya, right, are found on the Pacific coast, indicating a route coming from Asia, exactly where these Melanesians would have been coming from. So when these Melanesians migrate from Melanesia to the Americas, it is on the Pacific coast side, exactly where you find the Makoya or the pre-Olmec civilization. Next slide. And you see here, right, the cultural continuity from the Aboriginal Australian brother playing the instrument there, the didgeridoo, I believe it's called. And you see from the Aztec Mayan release, them playing the same instruments, showing the cultural continuity. They are even wearing the same loincloth, right? So when you talk about the Blackness that existed in the Americas, it came from Melanesia. It is rooted in Melanesian ancestry. So these are the Black ancestors of the Aboriginal Americans. The Aboriginal American, the Aboriginal Australian, and the Aboriginal European are all part of one family represented by the C haplogroup. Not A00.
I like that little extra dig.
You know,
oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. So yeah, so I do have some of the darker skin toned melanated or Black tribes of these North and South Americas, right? And it includes the Yamasee that have these. And one thing that God Energy said that you'll find throughout every group in here is that C haplogroup, right? It's in every single column up here, right? And the Yamasee, these are coming from English colonial observers and traders in the Carolina records from the 1600s to 1700s. Dark brown skin, broad facial features, thick or wavy hair described in some colonial accounts. The Seminole Floridians, and this is before the admixture with the enslaved African people that escaped and went into Florida. And they were still, some of them did have the dark skin, the broad facial features, and wavy to tightly curled hair in some communities. And this was done by the Spanish and American and also ethnographic observers of the 17 and 1800s. The Chumash, coastal California. Now this one doesn't have that C haplogroup, but it still has that darker skin tones and the occasional wavy hair texture. And this is going to the same conversation that God Energy was saying earlier, that when he was saying that there were some Asian groups of people that still held these the deeply pigmented features, but clearly have other phenotypes. When he pulled up the picture of the Scandinavian woman and the picture of the Asian woman, right? That if you just lighten their skin, they wouldn't be no different from the lighter skin populations of those people. But if you were to lighten my skin, I would still have the same, black features of other people, right? So just because these coastal Californians have the dark skin tones, it doesn't necessarily mean they are part of the Black diaspora that we are talking about. The Taino Caribbean, who has that C haplogroup as well, but goes from copper brown to dark brown skin. Some accounts mention thick or wavy hair textures. Christopher Columbus, and this is coming from Christopher Columbus, obviously, and Spanish chroniclers in the 1490s. The Calinago Island of Am I still is my screen still? Oh, there it goes. In the Caribbean islands, darker complexion, broad facial features, thick and wavy hair. This is coming from the French and Spanish. The Mayans, the southern Mexican, the Guatemala also have these dark pigmented people. So basically what I'm saying is that you see these people coming, like how the brother said, coming down through these different migration patterns, and also having other featured of people, because we're not the only ones coming into America. We have other groups of Asians coming into America, and we're meeting here in America. So and I just and just one little dig, when I hear my Aboriginal brothers and sisters talk like this, it's interesting to me that I don't hear any of these tribes. These are not the tribes y'all are talking about. Y'all be talking about the only tribe that I literally hear y'all talk about is the Seminoles, and the Seminoles absolutely have this history with African ancestry integrating and admixing with those people. But the Choctaw, the Iroquois, the Shawnee, like these tribes of people that we're trying to attach ourselves to, do not share the same phenotypes as us, does not share the same, genetic markers as us, but we kind of are implementing ourselves into their genealogy when there is Black tribes that we can absolutely look to, and we're not looking to those. And also, yeah.
I want to say, though, even those Black tribes, like even though we're firmly establishing the Blackness of early Aboriginal Americans, we are not descended from those peoples either. So yes, in reality, there were Black Aboriginal Americans, but we are not the descendants of those peoples anyway. We can just look at them as another Black group of peoples that were in America and fell on hardship, but we're not even descended from those people. I just wanted to add.
Okay, I was giving them space.
I get that. I get that.
I was giving space, but okay. But like I was saying, and then when you go into at least our grandparents, and I don't want to skip over Ashe. I don't know if he wanted to add anything to this Native American conversation, but when you start going into our history, and that's lending a hand to what God Energy was just saying, when we're talking about our forefathers and foremothers of our lineage, of our civil rights movements, and our struggles within America, you absolutely see these people identifying themselves as African, as African American, as Africo-American, as all of these subversions of African, because they weren't confused about whether or not they were Native American or not. Right. So I just wanted to highlight that little part. But Ashe, before I move on, you could go ahead.
No, it's just brief. I ain't saying much. I just want to add in And let's not forget that these same groups of Native Americans and indigenous people that a lot of us try to identify ourselves with, when you do your true ancestry and then people do their true ancestry, you find out that a lot of them later on enslaved people that look like us as well. That's a fact. So, hey, deal with that, what you want to deal with it. Go ahead, sister.
Right, because the tribes that I hear people, relate to are usually one of the 5 civilized ones. And that's not to say that the entirety of the tribe was for slavery, because, we all know, I hope we would know, that history is a complex storyteller, right? So you have these civilized tribes being slave owners, but then you could also find these civilized tribes being anti-slavery. You can find them both, because these people are not a monolith, just like we're not a monolith. But I just wanted to make the distinction that they were doing so underneath the banner of being Indigenous American. And when we were doing it under the banner of being African American. And I just want to show something really quickly. First of all, I'm going to come out of this because I don't want y'all to see it.
I was about to say, could we get some specific examples of our
that's what I'm about to get into right now. Give me 1 second.
Shoot.
Because I have to. I'm sorry, I gotta stop sharing for a second. And then, yes, we're going to definitely get into some of the specifics of what I was talking about.
Is y'all finna leave antiquity?
Yeah. I'm in the 1700s right now. I'm in right after Revolutionary War. We coming up onto some closer to
I just want to. I'm gonna throw a couple things in before you do that, real quick.
Yeah, while I'm getting this together, do your thing. I'm going on mute.
Of course, we gonna go into the Khoisan. Bang bang. We go into this real quick. We see that the Khoisan people, they have moved into Europe. These are some of the first people that actually moved into Europe. This is around 45,000 BCE, right? We'll see them. They highlighted their anatomy. They highlighted their phenotype. We have this term right here, stereotypia. I don't even really know how to pronounce it, but it is a high degree of fat accumulation. Say it again.
Stereotypia.
Thank you. It is a high degree of fat accumulation in and around the buttocks, extending to the outside in front of the thighs, forming a thick layer reaching sometimes to the knee. This constitutes a genetic characteristic of some Khoisan females. It has also been noted among the quote-unquote pygmies of Central Africa and the Endemese Negritos of the Andaman Islands. Among the Khoisan, it is regarded as a sign of beauty. It begins in infancy and is fully developed by the time of the first pregnancy. While the Khoisan afford the most noticeable examples of its development, it is by no means rare in other parts of Africa and occurs even more frequently among male basters than among Khoi women. The Khoisan admiration for stereotypy. Say it again, brother. One more time.
Stereotypia.
Stereotypia. Thank you. Females, together with his great artistic ability, will provide artifacts that are a great aid in tracking their migrations across Europe and Asia. Sometime around 45,000 BC, the great glacial ice sheets that covered most of Europe started to melt, and a group or groups of these Khoisan people walked across the Gibraltar Straits and into Europe. This marks the first time in history that the modern humans crossed over into the formerly frozen wilderness of Europe. Once in Europe, these people continued their migration and came to eventually inhabit all of Europe and Northeast Asia. The easternmost limit of his range appears to have been the settlement known as Malta in the Siberian Russia, just north of Mongolia. This Stereotypia, hope I got it right that time, right? Well, I want to go into just one more source, and we'll go into a couple images as well, and we can carry on and get back into antiquity. Just real quick, bang. I want to give y'all this little excerpt just real quick, and we get out of there. So, of course, this is the source right here. from the Journey of Anthropological Sciences, volume 93. This from 2015. Tall Guys and Fat Ladies: Grimaldi's Upper Paleolithic Burials and Figurines in Historical Perspective. Let's go to a couple things real quick. We'll go into the fat ladies. Deposits. Just talking about the Venus of Willendorf figurines and things of that nature, showing that they was highlighting that statopigia. They was highlighting this African phenotype, that they was highlighting the beauty of that, even once they had even got over into when they was in Europe. So we see all of these traces of these people in Europe in the caves. This is just going on about this cranial structure, bone shape. And I'll read this one real quick and we'll move on. We'll go into the Negroid dilemma. It states, at the end of the 19th century, only one of the Balzi-Rossi caves was preserved as a deposit largely intact. The cave, already explored in the upper levels by Riviera, was named Grotte des Infants because of the recovery in the 1870s of the remains of 2 children. The careful scientific work carried out by clergyman Louis de Villanueva on behalf of the Prince of Monaco, Albert I, provided a base of reference for the reconstruction of the Upper Paleolithic archaeological subsequence at Balzi-Rossi, and remove remaining doubts about the antiquity of the burials. One of the most relevant results, however, was the discovery in 1901 of the double burial of the so-called quote-unquote Negroids of Grimaldi. The burial included the skeleton of an old female, Grotte des Infants, figure 5, and of an adolescent, Grosse des Infants 6, provided René Vernou the opportunity to define a new Upper Paleolithic quote-unquote race. According to Vernou, in 1901 through 1906, the 2 skeletons were quite different from the Upper Paleolithic remains, generally labeled as Cro-Magnons, and exhibited a quote-unquote primitive Negroid facial morphology in figure 10. Artistic production seemed to support this typological attribution. In fact, as noted by the French archaeologist Edouard Piette, White 2003, the protruding buttocks and the characterizing quote-unquote Venus figures were nothing but the representation of feature typical of Bushman females, a Southern African population at this time considered very primitive both morphologically and culturally. The popularity of Vernou's findings is embellishingly reflected by the museum's arrangement of the quote-unquote Negroid skulls, incorrectly positioned in order to let the public appreciate the facial peculiarities. In fact, as reported by Suzanne Simon, 1987, curator of the Musée d'Anthropologie Préhistorique de Monaco, where the skeletons are on display, de Villanueva notebook clearly points out that the adult woman was buried face down, while the adolescent was face partly covered by her skull. It is important to stress that the term Negroid was meant by Vernou as an evolutionary grade preceding the Cro-Magnon quote-unquote race, and more in general modern quote-unquote races. This point of view was consistent with the stratigraphic data. The burial of the quote-unquote Negroids lie deep in the archaeological sequence. Thus, the quote-unquote Negroid type from Grimaldi was more ancient than the Cro-Magnon type and possibly directly linked to it. The typological attribution mainly grounded on the characteristic facial prognatism was challenged 60 years later by French dental anthropologists. According to Pierre Legault, the protrusion of the maxilla of the adult female resulted from the adaptations of mysticatory mechanism to the loss of posterior definition, while the reconstruction and the similar adolescent face was incorrect. Legault's critical revision removed the difficult problem of the original of the quote-unquote exotic individuals and how people of African ancestry could have arrived on the Mediterranean coast of Europe. These reasons contributed to make Legault's thesis successful, starting with the 1908. However, archaeological, paleontological, and biomolecular data provided increasingly evidence that Africa played a central role in the origin of the anatomically modern humans. This hypothesis is strong, supported by the tropical body proportions characterized in the Grecian samples. Among those, the tall and linear body build of the Grotte des Infants as a clear example of the tropically adapted physique. On the other hand, the fact that no other case of African facial features can be found in the contemporary material, except perhaps the Sungir II child, raises serious doubts. But we can see right here that these people, as we have the evidence, were of a quote unquote Negroid stock. Then all the way down with the what was the term that you used, God Energy?
The Statopedia?
Absolutely.
So, brother, it's funny that you just went there because the article that I got my N haplogroup information from, the second half of it deals exactly with what you just said with the Grimaldi, even the Cro-Magnon being related to the Khoisan and through the craniofacial analysis. So, shout out to you for bringing that information.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And shout out to us because, like, can I be very clear? Like, we did all of our information separately and they still flow together because we're speaking in truth. Like, like we just all got together to just have this conversation to see where we at, and we all literally flow together because the information is just the information. It has nothing to do with wanting to like blackenize things. It's just things be black as hell. That's all that is. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen real quick. We are coming to the end. So please, for the naysayers in the comments, please don't be afraid to hit the link. Thank you. And this is going to be really quick. Am I sharing? Do you see me?
Yep.
Okay. So 18th century primary evidence, the rise of the African and the African American. In the 1700s, free and self-liberated individuals began organizing collectively under the banner of African to assert their global heritage, culminating in the first printed uses of African American right after the Revolutionary War. 1787 founding document, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones established the Free African Society in Philadelphia. The preamble explicitly notes the organization was built by and for we, the Africans, and their descendants of Philadelphia. In 1796, the church charter, the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal AME Zion Church in New York, selected their names to preserve their lineage. Their early documentation stated they chose the name African because it was peculiarly appropriate to them as a people of African descent. May 15th of 1782, a newspaper advertisement, the earliest documented printed appearance of the exact phrase African American occurred in the Pennsylvania Journal. It advertised a published sermon to be sold. The physical pamphlet advertised above, titled A Sermon on the Capture of Lord Cornwallis, was published anonymously, but featured the author credit line by an African American. In 1788, private correspondence, the variation Africo-American, was used in a letter to Thomas Jefferson regarding Black musical culture. And it says, as much as the Afro-Americans want to banjo to digest with their couscous the hardships of but in the hardship of their lives, ... because the rest isn't that important. I'm just pointing out the African American. I'm sorry, y'all could correct me with this name. Olaudah Equiano. On the title page of his famous autobiography, he identified himself by the name and origin. The interesting narrative of the life of, I'm not going to butcher that man's name again, or Gustavus.
Olaudah Equiano is how you pronounce it.
Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavus Vassa, the African. Phyllis Wheatley from 1773, in her poem to the Right Honorable William, Earl of Dartmouth, she writes of her stolen heritage. Should you, my lord, while you pursue my song, wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung, I, young in life, by seeming cruel fate, was snatched from Africa's fancied happy seat. Prince Hall, he addressed his people as his African brethren. And this is just some more of, people calling themselves Black. And this one, 1853, Rochester Convention address. Frederick Douglass drafted the National Declaration maintaining their unique status. We are American by birth and remains African by descent. We ask that we be not excluded from the rights of citizens. Right, and then we can go on and on with, David Walker talking about the glory of blacks, about Maria W. Stewart, asking if she should suffer for the African as well as the Caledonian, and Sojourner Truth calling herself a black woman, and T. Thomas Fortune. I don't know if y'all remember him from my feminist debate with King J. Him and his family started the Afro-American League in 1890 to explicitly cement their dual heritage. So the idea of being African-American is not something that Jesse Jackson came up with. It is not something that came out in the 80s. This is something that we've been saying for a very long time. You just have to be able to go into the works of the people that were doing the works. And these are, and if you notice, none of these people are trying to identify themselves as Native American or any of those other things, even though Native Americans absolutely worked with these people. Don't get it twisted. Native Americans were absolutely a part of the fight against slavery within their own tribes and against the government. Right? So I don't want to just paint them all as just slave owners and this, that, and the third. Some people integrated harmoniously, but you cannot in 2026 be claiming 100% indigenous American. Not on my watch, okay? Because it just doesn't make sense. It only makes sense with an admixture. And if you are trying to claim that, please also claim that you are Asian. That was a joke, but kind of seriously. With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to either God Energy or Ashe if y'all want to do any closing out thoughts or any things that y'all made it for God or just want to add on, because I do want to be able to open up the lines for the people. We're coming up on 2 hours and 15 minutes.
God Energy, if you ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing. So if you got some God Energy, we can get it. We can get it out.
I just wanna close out by saying, I hope people got the definition and metrics of what Black people actually means, right? A Black person is not just someone who is descended directly from Africa. A Black person is not just the African American population, right? A Black person is not someone who lacks Neanderthal admixture, right? There is a very clear usage of the term Black, and it extends beyond the colonialism of the Western world. It extends beyond the legal jargon of America. And these peoples that are considered Black, they have a history. There is genetics to go along with it, and we share a unified culture, right? In the overcoming of racial oppression and colonialism. The Papuan peoples, right? The Melanesian Papuan peoples, they were facing abuse and being exterminated by the Indonesians. Recently, we know the Aboriginal Australians and them being colonized and classified as flora and fauna, right, by the British colonizers. We know the Dravidians were labeled Dalit or untouchables in the very subcontinent of India that their ancestors were the first people to live on. We know that in South Africa, they faced apartheid, right? And here we suffered slavery and Jim Crow. And just like here, there was a racial caste system, just like in apartheid South Africa, there's a racial caste system. We know in India, they instituted their racial caste system in the spiritualism right? Hinduism enforces the racial caste system, with the head of the Brahmin being the lightest colored peoples and the dirty feet of the deity representing the Dalit Dravidians, right? So we have a common culture, we have shared experience, and we don't need to cut ourselves off from the Black global family, especially in the name of supporting a very fictitious identity of Aboriginal American. So I just want to leave y'all with that. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. Hopefully y'all learned something. And thank you for having us.
Yeah, with that being said, I think that was a great way to close it out. I absolutely agree. I think that in the span of these conversations, we do get lost in the very present and modern conversation about race, and we forget that these people understood descriptions. They knew what they looked like, they knew what other people looked like, and they absolutely acted on those situations. But I'm gonna be quiet and let the new people come up. Thank y'all for listening, and I appreciate y'all.
Now, Ankh, I know you want to go, but I gotta get Suntan first. I know you gonna be long.
I ain't gonna be long.
Yes, you is.
I promise you I ain't gonna be long.
Suntan ain't though. Suntan ain't gonna be long at all. I got you right after Suntan.
I had to step out a couple of times in peace, man. Good representation of history and things of that nature. I just want to know this from all three of you guys: were Indians considered our friends as far as this phenotype? Because I need you to show my screen. I say. First, answer the question: was Indians our friends? Issa, was they considered our friends? Because we got a lot of abos claiming Aboriginal and they mix in colors. So I want to know: is that question clear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. When you say considered our friends, meaning like our immediate allies, did they immediately empathize with the enslaved Africans, with both of us being abused by Europeans?
Yeah.
And they were not, like the sister said, they were not a monolith. So some of them did empathize with us and give us refuge as runaways, and some of them enslaved us the same way that the Europeans did.
Okay.
Right. And there's a book here, Black Indians, that talks about that checkered relationship. So it was dynamic. So just to answer your question directly, you could not make this statement that the Indians were our friends, because that would generalize the relationship too much in a biased way towards friendly interactions, where we have clear documentation that it was a checkered interaction.
All right. I love that answer. Could you show my screen, Ashay?
This?
No, that I don't see nothing but us. Oh yeah. This one right here. It said Indians were never our friends. I've been doing research on that lately, and I was doing the research just for the fact of the abos, and they were saying they was already here and things of that nature. But I found out that the Indians weren't so much as our friends. And then through this presentation you got, that's a good breakdown, because of anybody reading this right here. It was it was really the other one that I wanted to show, I say, but that's fine, because that's all I wanted to know. And I'm good with the answer that God Energy gave, because like I said, I'm not against Aboriginals or nobody like that, but you got a lot of people who pick and choose history and try to crowbar things in. So I think that what you just said, God Energy, because me and you never studied together, and it just went parallel to what I just showed and what I was thinking. So that's why I like, listen to you young people. Keep it up. And it's on you, go ahead.
Let's go, God Killer.
What's up, Sister Issa? How you doing? How you feeling today? Good to see you.
I'm feeling great. I hope you're feeling good, Uncle Ankh.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to the grand sister first. You know what I'm saying? The queen, right? I want to speak to her first, and then the two knuckleheads, God, energy, and Ashe. Let me say this to you. Why would you make this easy for me and the team? Why would y'all do that?
Because they knew you was coming.
I ain't even talking to you. I'm saying, what do you give the? I'm gonna ask you. Watch this. This is a litmus test. A elder suntan.
Yeah.
You give they all three of them. They came together like Voltron with the. What do you give their presentation? What do you think about it? If I was to give you accuracy, a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say?
I would give them an 8.
An 8. So there's y'all answer right there, right?
8, 9. Because
There
they
y'all go.
they on point.
Y'all got y'all answer. Y'all can't make it this easy for me, man. You know I'm the old guy. Y'all gotta make it a little more hard for me, man. Look, all I can tell y'all is keep doing your thing, right? And you'll figure it out. Let me just tell y'all that. Remember this moment. I said keep doing your thing and you'll figure it out. I ain't gonna throw no shade, I ain't gonna do nothing. I gotta go live though. Gotta do that.
We already know.
What you going live about? You gotta let us know what's the topic, man.
The topic is, like you said, y'all did all y'all presentations separately. Y'all should have checked each other's stuff first, because one wrench kill a whole thing.
What's the wrench?
I'm gonna tell you when I go live.
You gotta teach now. You can't get on
listen, they don't want to get taught by me because I don't.
We all need to get taught. If you got something positive to say, let us hear it.
I'll say this. Whatever, trash in, trash out, right? If you're starting off with a faulty premise, never acquiesce to a faulty premise and never acquiesce to bad sources. Bad sources, bad websites, and all that will have you getting beat half to death in these YouTube streets that we created that's paved with scientific literacy.
So you're not here to teach, you just here to critique and lead.
Yeah, hold on, wait, man. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I was about to say other people might have something to contribute. If his answer was short and sweet, let's keep it that.
There you go. Right. Look. This how we do it. This how we do it around here.
I just have a quick question.
And you got Issa there. I don't want to start nothing with the sister here, so I'm gonna be on my best behavior. As long as y'all got her with y'all safe. That's all I'm gonna say.
Can I ask a quick question?
Get it in.
Peace. Just to the brother guy energy real quick. I enjoyed the presentation.
What a surprise.
But just a quick question, brother, because I just want to get an idea where your head was at. In regards to race, is race a social category or is it a biological one? And can you actually name me a black haplogroup?
Firstly, the A haplogroup. Then secondly, race is mostly defined socially.
Socially. So if it's a social category, why are you trying to use it in a biological manner?
Because with tools like the reflectometer, skin tone is measurable.
Well, my understanding is that skin tone is an adaptive trait that you determine by geography, exposure to UV radiations, and diet. It has nothing to do with your actual
Agreed.
gene. Okay. So it's not a fixed marker, correct?
No.
But you're using it as a haplogroup, but you say it's not a fixed marker, but haplogroup A is a black haplogroup?
Due to its basal nature.
Makes it a black haplogroup. Okay. So archaic humans were black and white, that existed in archaic humans, or were they simply archaic?
such as Neanderthals, yes, being a archaic human or hominin, Neanderthals showed a range of skin tones ranging
Yes.
from dark to quote unquote white.
Yes. Okay.
All right, let me get Uncle Francis.
Good night. Now, I came in a little late. I came in an hour into the presentation. It was a good presentation. But to me, I think you might be conflating the Asiatic with the African a little bit, from my view. I don't necessarily see that in that particular way. I think that they're definitely separate groups of people. I don't think they count as African. That's my view. But I didn't see the whole presentation, to be fair. So maybe you addressed that, maybe you didn't. But I don't see that way. I don't see that connection in that way to put them in.
I don't understand what your statement is. Could you repeat this statement? Maybe with
I don't necessarily agree with the connection between the Asiatics, the Dravidians, and the Africans, saying that they are necessarily the same people. But I did come in an hour late, so maybe you addressed that, and maybe I didn't understand exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, no one said that the Dravidians are Africans. We actually explicitly said the opposite of that.
Okay, but right. I'm saying I could stand to be corrected because I didn't catch the whole presentation. So I could stand to be corrected.
If that's your stance, then I think you're actually going to enjoy the presentation in its entirety.
Okay, so I'll go back and I'll watch it, to be fair. And number two, black predates race. Race is an idea that because you're black and someone else is quote unquote white, they are superior. Black has been used for thousands of years by all groups and all societies. So you cannot conflate that with the idea of race. It's not the same thing, and there is a biological basis for skin color. It's called melanin. There is a biological basis for that, not race. And I have never seen a depiction of a black caveman or black Neanderthal. So maybe you could clarify that a little bit for me too. Exactly what you mean by that.
Well, I have.
Hold on, wait.
Jesus.
A black caveman or a black Neanderthal?
Well, it would be nice to see a
I
self-portrait
can show you a picture.
of any white caveman or black
I have a picture right here.
Right.
Well, I've never seen them discover any.
I have a picture right here. Give me a second.
Yeah, we learn something every day.
I've
So
maybe I need to go back and watch the presentation to see how you brought that.
Yeah, I think that'll be
so
better.
from left to right, and this is coming out of Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. And from left to right, this is Homo rudolfensis. Can you help me with the pronunciation of that? This is Homo erectus. Hold on. Is this Homo erectus?
That's not Neanderthals, though.
Yes. Yes.
And the last one is Homo Neanderthal.
Mm-hmm. So is that
Neanderthal?
Would that be a black person definition?
Rudolfensis.
By today's terminology, would Neanderthal be a black person?
King J, you wild.
No, Neanderthal would be a race of human.
A race.
That would be like, if we were talking about human race, the way that we like to say, Haitian is a race, African American is a race. No, we are the human race, right? We are the Homo sapien race, and then you'll have the Neanderthal race, and then you'll have the whole Homo rudolfensis race. You'll have all of those are the races, and in those races, you'll have a fluctuation of colors because colors determined by adaptation, it's determined by food, it's determined by all of those things. So the way that we think about race is the Eurocentric version, just based on the spectrum of colors. When once upon a time there was literally different races of human beings.
Different races of hominids.
Them different species, brother, is what she's really saying.
Different species.
You mean species instead of races is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me move on to the.
No, I said exactly what I wanted to say.
Well, you said it. Well, in that case, then I have contention, and everybody on the panel should.
Well, no problem. No
We'll
problem.
swing back for that. Let me move on to Dizali, then Purple, then we go get
Thank you. Yo, peace to the three, to you, Issa, the Queen Issa, and to God Energy for taking y'all time to put together a presentation for the people. I will admit that I was in and out, probably more out than in. I was mostly here for the introduction that you all gave and told us where y'all would be going with it. So I will be fair. My first question is, and it's just a question because I'm not real studied on this. My first question is to God Energy, and it has to do with use of the term Black and how we are using it, how we currently use it. And I was concerned with him assigning that to certain peoples, but I humble myself and I understand that we are very flexible and diverse with the use of the term Black. So I have to see where you are with it, God Energy. Would you say that a East Indian or a Dravidian is Black if they were to come to America?
So you see how you contextualized it of if they were to come to America, suggesting the socio-political definition that America put on its slave descended population, which is not under the confines of what Black is defined as for the global Black population. Because if you Wikipedia the term Black people, it includes Dravidians, it includes Melanesians. Why? Because the classification of Black people is defined by certain measurements of the face, and not even decided specifically by skin tone. Secondly, so meaning if you have certain facial features, facial measurements, wideness of a nose, prognatism of a jaw, certain type of palate or skull shape, you fall into the classification of Black, sometimes regardless of your skin tone, which is why a person in Asia, such as the Manik people of Thailand, or the Aeta people of the Philippines, or the Angje people of the Solomon Islands, these peoples all can be considered Black, along with me, you, and Trevor Noah from South Africa.
Let me ask this. And once more, I'm not an expert in it, so let me ask you and maybe the other people who are. Is that way to classify people not deemed unscientific now? Officially, I know that the scientific community may use it in certain instances, conversation. But as far as craniology and face measurements, is that still a valid scientific?
Yes, it's considered cladistics. And then you yourself just admitted scientists use the term Black, and then you gave whatever you alluded to a context. So then you admit that scientists still also use that term Black. And then craniofacial metrics is not synonymous with phrenology. Craniofacial metrics is not synonymous with eugenics. So that's why some people fall on that sword, and you may have heard someone else bring that argument, and then you might be repeating that right now. But craniofacial metrics falls into cladistics, which is the modern classification system of organisms into different clades or clines.
Okay, but all right. So I understand where we have a disconnect now, and once again, it's good presentation that you gave us. And most of us, myself included, I suppose that we are stuck on the social aspect of race. And you are using the scientific aspect of race, which I'll have to go and do some more reading on so that I could be on board with you. I really think that I wanted to get with Issa, because I think he was the one addressing Blackology, but I think I missed his presentation. But I'm going to go back and listen to it, brother, because I think you were trying to, I could be wrong, but I think you were trying to say that what many of us use as a derogatory term for Blackology, we really should not be doing that. But I have to go back and listen to what you taught on it and what you brought on it. So, you know, I just have to catch you on another time.
Wait, can I just say that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I actually was the one that brought that argument in my intro. So my introduction speaks to our use of Blackology and how some people try to use it in a negative way when really they are just describing science fiction and pseudoscience amongst teachers, whereas Blackology is and should be something completely different from that type of interpretation. So I had actually spoke to that in my intro. Also, side note, the Dravidian linguist Dr. Loganatha, who is a Sumero-Tamil scholar, also described his Dravidian peoples as Black. So a Dravidian man also opted in and self-referenced as Black in acknowledgement that the term Black speaks to a specific set of features shared amongst specific peoples globally.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any more bullets or rocks that I throw because I didn't really see the darn presentation. I'm gonna fall back. Like I said, y'all might be more of an expert at it than me, man. Good work you all put in. I fall back, people. Yeah.
I just wanted to say this really quickly because it was a part of my introduction as well. In my introduction, I said like we have to learn how to take out Black from being social and political to be able to have this historical and scientific conversation. Because when you start having these conversations and you're not necessarily separating the two, you do go down a realm of racism and racist scientists and all of this other things. But in all reality, if you just looking at it as a characteristic, like if everybody was to cam up that says that they're, of African descent, there will be certain things that we have in similarity to each other that would absolutely be scientifically in a descriptor and something you can observe with your eyes. It has really nothing to do with what European people were saying. And being that we have these, history of medical data, like the tablets that was found in Mesopotamia, the papyri that was found in Egypt, where they're not even classifying people, but just describing people. This person is of this skin tone when they came in to see the doctor, and they were feeling from this ailment or that ailment. Like they do that, and that's just all we're doing. That's it.
Facts. Let me get Purple. What's going on, Purple?
Miss Diva. Sorry.
Purple going once. Purple going twice.
I think she just wanted to shout out.
Purple just showed up and showed up. All right, let's get Harwin.
There we go, brother Harwin. That's my man.
What's going on, brother?
What's up, y'all? What's happening, everybody?
Peace.
Everybody on the panel.
Let it rip, Harwin.
Hey, I love y'all presentation. All three of y'all did a good job.
Yeah, appreciate that,
brother. Guy Energy, I'm proud of you. Brother Bomb Squad, I talked to you in the back, but I say it right here too. You did a great job. Issa Kween, you did a great job too. Don't mind the people that just want to be contrarians. A lot of people that talk in the chat never come up on the panel and say anything.
Right.
They never have nothing to add to it. These people are really anti-African. Don't mind them. They love the out of Africa theory when a white man said. But when you're showing that these haplogroups evolved from people that came out of Africa, now they got a problem with you calling them Black. It's a contradiction. It's a contradiction. So don't mind those guys. And brother Guy Energy, when you talk about the Dravidian Hindu connection with the Sumerian, get into the Bantu connection to it too.
Now look,
Can you hear me now?
That I'm saving. Yeah, Purple. We can hear you now. That I'm saving for my presentation about the Dravidians to bring out the Afro-Dravidian language family. So I'm glad you know where I'm going with this, brother.
I already know. I already know. And Elder Suntan, when
Yes, sir.
Jabari get out of witness protection program, he gonna get got too.
Oh, we got you covered. All right. You know you my guy, so we setting it up now.
Oh yeah. I got love for you, Elder Suntan. I'm proud of y'all though. That was a good presentation.
Yeah, it was great. Like I said, I give him an 8-9. Perfect 10 is because I don't strictly agree with anybody. I got to do my own research.
Yes, sir.
Hey, he was right on
energy. I'm with y'all on that, destroying that pseudo anti-African racist sub-Saharan African ideology. It don't exist.
Right. I mean, it exists in the mind of Europeans.
Barney exists in some people's minds. That don't mean he was real. You feel me?
Right.
So, Bomb Squad, I told you what I was gonna tell you about the Khoisan. You will see. I'll pass it on. Oh, Issa Kween, you did a great job too. I just want to say just one thing to you. You did a great job. I'm not a contrarian, trust me. I love all three of you guys' points. It's very, 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 very valid. But you gotta understand, Homo neanderthalensis is a different species from Homo sapiens. So people like King J come up here and try to check you on something little bitty like that because you said racist. So just be careful with that.
I want to say this before you leave, Arwen.
Oh, what I was actually saying is that if you're trying to classify what a race is, it will be more suited for you to say things like Homo sapien is a race, Homo neanderthalis is a race. But when you're talking about just within the Homo sapiens, it doesn't make sense to say, oh, this race, that race, the third race. No, like that's not it. Especially since in all reality, Homo sapien and Homo neanderthalis aren't necessarily different species, because if they were, they wouldn't be able to reproduce.
Well, Issa Kween, you make a good point. Dogs. This is the point you're making that's so good, is because even though I disagree that they're the same species, but it's still a great point, because that now means that scientists can't really give you a valid explanation on what a species actually is. That's what it really is.
Like I said, I was going to say this, y'all. When y'all get a critique from Harwin, trust me, I trust his scholarship, but he gonna get beat up by Jabari. But I trust his scholarship, and he he's a good man, man. Tell y'all some information. You know what I'm saying? So we ain't gonna worry about the naysayers, because everybody can't agree with y'all, man. And it was lovely. That's how I met y'all. Y'all was on some agree with me stuff, but not agree with me. You know what I'm saying? Because I was talking about the social construct, and y'all peeped that out when I first met y'all. So we all know it's there, right? So let's just keep dealing with it.
Hey, God Energy. Have you seen Chief X?
No, he missing in action.
You seen him? Have you seen him?
We ain't seen him, bro. You got to do a wellness check. I'm
saying that for a reason. That's going to be Jabari, Elder Suntan. You're not gonna. He gonna be flabbergasted.
You know why I love it? Hold on, Harwin. You know why I love to see it? Because I'm gonna learn from both of y'all. That's why I want to see it. I don't care who wins. I'm not biased.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
All right, y'all.
But let me move on to Purple. Let's try again. Purple, what's going on, Purple?
Hey, now you guys hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. We can hear you.
Bomb Squad, I love you. You guys did great. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Purple. Good to see you.
Absolutely welcome. So the question I have is, you guys use the word haplo a lot. I was wondering if we could get a definition and an origin of the word and how it pertains to how it's being used.
Of course. So a haplogroup is a collection of haplotypes. Right? And a haplotype is a collection of alleles. And an allele is a collection of single nucleotides, right? So the nucleotides are the proteins that make up the DNA. You have cytosine, thymine, guanine, and another one. Those are single nucleotides. So when you have a chain of them together, that's a specific allele. Then if you have multiple chains, that's a haplotype. Then multiple haplotypes create a haplogroup, right? So sometimes you could make a genetic clustering based off of haplogroups, like the A haplogroup associated with the Khoisan, or the B haplogroup associated with the Central African rainforest hunter-gatherers, sometimes called pygmies. But also then you can have clustering based off of haplotypes, right? And you can see specific haplotypes amongst different groups, amongst different haplogroups can share a haplotype. So I hope that defines it a little bit more, give you some understanding from the protein nucleotide up to the actual haplogroup.
Yes. So when you say somebody is a haplogroup of A, B, C, and D, that means they have those strains from those 4 different groups all together in one.
No. So you would only have 2 haplogroups: your mother's haplogroup and your father's haplogroup. So your father's haplogroup is the Y chromosome DNA, and your mother's haplogroup is the mitochondrial DNA. So each person would only carry 2 haplogroups, one from the mother, one from the father.
And can I just say this? Because the only reason why I'm saying this because you used those letters specifically, and I feel like it's coming from my chart. And what my chart was actually showing is that amongst this group of people, these are the haplogroups that you will find in this group of people. Not to say that one individual person had every one of those haplogroups that I mentioned.
Great follow-up.
Okay. Now.
Yeah, because that could have been a miscommunication on my part.
Okay. Now I get it. Thank you.
All right. Black Mill. Black Mill, you in the building?
Yes, Ashe.
Ashe.
Nice presentation, good information. I just wanted to ask, the haplogroup A and B is exclusive to Africa, is it? Because you said C is what left Africa, so I'm just especially up to now.
You a little low, but
yes.
I think we heard
even though the A haplogroup did migrate out of Africa in certain instances, A and B haplogroups are largely confined to Africa, whereas C would represent the out of Africa migration, as well as haplogroup D.
So apart from the quotient, you would say there's other groups, like we could say, like what they would say, like the better Israel people would carry some of that A, haplogroup DNA.
The A. Yeah,
right.
what about them?
Thing,
Some Beta Israel do carry the A haplogroup. Yes.
Yes, all right then. Yeah, all right. And the neo, what do you call it? The neo, which is NILO, Saharan people too. Are they carrying that same?
Nilo-Saharan. Some Nilo-Saharan groups do, such as the Dinka Sudanese as well. Yes.
All right.
Any more questions? Well, before I do want to make this statement as well about the statopegia, that term. When it came down to that was another one of those African features that was exploited, that we found in freak shows. Individuals like Sarah Bartman had this trait as well. Just a couple historical references. So like I said, it was just very prominent. And for my guys in the quote unquote Black woman is God movement, this is very strong for you guys as well, because we just see that veneration of that black woman and her attributes and her anatomy. So we see that, and that was done, like I said, and it was carried over even once they got into Europe. So that, to me, that was just incredible, very incredible. Yeah.
Is it so, the is that the MT DNA is it older than the Y? Does it go further than the Y?
Mitochondria, yeah, yes. When you talk about the origins of organisms in general, you find mitochondria, and it was the absorption of certain proteins by mitochondria that gave you the first single-celled organism. So you can find mitochondria in the first single-celled organism.
And I just wanted to say, last thing, the
You're
haplogroups
welcome, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the letters are just like representing like family codes, like a family tree.
That was the question.
Family.
What letters? What letters?
Like the A, B, and the C, and then we go into L, O, and then
Yeah.
L1,
Yeah.
L2.
Yeah, it's a designation that they use. They could have used numbers, right? But numbers probably would have got too complicated. So they used letters, and then they supplemented the different subclades with letters. I mean, with numbers.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Right. So what happens, right? See, and I gotta poke bears and I gotta throw shots because that's just what I do a little bit. You know what I mean? Can't have us on there. Can't have us like that. And another, I think it's great that we have these conversations because it highlights, and I really did want to highlight. I didn't see room for it in the presentation, but since we right here, I'm going to definitely say it. The fact that Blackology, this history of Black, it features the consciousness, it features conscious community, it features us, and the highlight of that was our Blackness, our Africanness, our origins, and the study of and reclaiming that. It took those individuals to put those boots on the ground to take Kemet back when they were telling you that Egypt was a white place. And they showed you all these images in movies where they depicted these individuals as white, right? So it took those boots on the ground historians and scholars to actually do those things. This is what made the conscious community. Like I was stating earlier, that gets usurped by all of the UFO talk. That gets usurped by the chakra talk. That gets usurped by the westernized occultism. And that's what the guys then promote. And that becomes the face of quote unquote Blackology. So when you hear it, you don't think this presentation. No, you think Bobby Hemmett. You think Phil Valentine. You think Billy Carson. That's what comes to mind. These are the faces that are being popularized. So that's not consciousness. Being a conscious was being aware of the attacks that was being put on our people, of the constructs that they was putting on our people, and tearing that down and breaking that down, and developing on top of that. That's been replaced. So this is Blackology. That's not Blackology. That's just Black version of westernized occultism, you know, and that's what we observe. And unfortunately, we get guys who then want to come into the scientific field or scientific conversations and blend them. So now there's talks of ancient Atlanteans and all of this crazy mess, and the Black folks were originally, the Moors are Lemurians, and all that. That stuff ain't got nothing to do with us, man. That ain't got nothing to do with us. And it even takes us even further once we get into these groups that make us disassociate ourselves from quote unquote Blacks. I can pull up a quote right now from Rabbi Respis, a Black guy, where he goes in about his identification as being Jewish, separating him from the Black community. He said, I moved away. He said, me being a Jew, me being Jewish, I suffered. What did he say? He said, I suffered alienation from the Blacks. He said, I moved my family into a more upper echelon neighborhood so I can get away from the noise of the Blacks. So even when we join these groups like Hebrew Israelite and all of that mess that gets you saying, oh, Africans are Hamites and you not that, that just, this is why we need these breakdowns. This is why Blackology is important, because the conscious community that we are part of is being overpopulated with those talking points, with the Native American guys who scared to take a DNA test.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I had to say this, and then I'm sure because I'm not doing it for no points. But Unc is a good guy. and he's outspoken, right? He didn't just leave without critiquing because of Issa Kween. He left because he had to go do some studying on the subject matter. Unc just won't leave like that. He's too outspoken to just leave like that and go clip up some. Now he can go to his people and present the thing the way he want to present your presentation the way he wants to present it, and with his points and bullet points and things of this nature. Not taking nothing away from Unc because he is who he is. Like I say, a good guy and he wants to teach. And he's, well studied. He, just methods is questionable sometimes. And I want to say this to Issa Kween. Issa Kween, I tried to put your Cash App out there, but the one that got there, I even went and did I'm real good with computers. I went a couple of ways and I still couldn't get it out there. That's why you didn't see yours showing. I was able to scoop our shades and God Energies, but I even went to the Cash App station and I still couldn't get yours out there.
Oh, and big shout out to all the donations too, man. Appreciate that, man.
I appreciate you for trying. If anybody want to send me anything, it's $ Issa Kween 17.
Oh yeah,
that's my Cash App.
Let me stop.
Thank you, though. I appreciate you.
Hold on, let me say this. Issa Kween, I did find that one, but I wasn't sure, and I started to send $1 just to test it because what you got up under your name, I couldn't get there. The dual of concepts, YT, I couldn't get there. But I got there with $ Issa Kween. So I should have went on forward and put that up. But you know how it is. You don't want to put up something you ain't really sure. Send your money to somebody else. So, and I couldn't talk to you because you was right in between your presentation. So I just wanted you to know
I appreciate the try. Thank you so much.
I was trying to communicate with you, but I was unable. If all you do is look in the back chat, you'll see I was begging you to give me some correction.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like by the time I saw it, I was over here. I was trying to make sure I had God Energy slides together, making sure my stuff was together. I was preoccupied, but I do appreciate you for trying.
You see, I sent you, right?
I'm sorry?
You sent all that information I sent you in the back chat, right?
Yes, I put it in the back chat. Yes.
Okay, I'm just saying, I just letting you know I didn't leave you out. I should have used, but now I know when you do something else, I know what to do.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
But let me.
So Elder Suntan, I just want to respond to Elder Suntan real quick.
Okay.
So you don't have to tell me that Ankh is going to study up on this information. I know Ankh does not know anything about the information that I bring, right? So that's why I'm annoyed to present yourself as if you disagree when you really don't know this information, but you come up just to be a contrarian. And to me, that makes you not a good guy. Because I know you don't know anything about this. So why present yourself as an enemy and present yourself as an authority figure correcting an incorrect youngster when you don't know the information? And that to me makes him not a good guy. Elder Suntan, you don't got to tell me Ankh is going to study up on this information that I bring that goes completely over his head. I've known that since day one, but we could have been friends, right? I don't care for this guy. I would prefer not to speak to him. And if he wants to learn something, just learn something. But it is what it is.
Let me say this, God Energy, and I'll let you get in, Harwin. This real quick. If he has some contention, and this is the house of consciousness, man. We are ready to learn. If he had anything to combat what you guys, say it so we will learn and we can go do research on what you said. He said zip.
Because he couldn't scam. Because he couldn't scam this time.
That's all I'm saying. You can go ahead, Howard.
Ankh presents himself as if he's come up here teaching scientific literacy.
Right.
But he will directly disagree with you before he even know what he's talking about or what you're talking about. He did it on the last time me and him had a conversation where he couldn't handle it. He started losing his mind, got to going all giving ad hominems and stuff. When we was talking about the Bible and the word Elohim and about where it come from, etc., etc., and I was quoting the Atra Hasis off the top of my head. He said that no scholar, I'm just giving y'all an example of what God Energy is saying. Y'all can, it's on video. He said that no scholar would say that that's a plural word. And I challenged him. Elder Suntan was in the back like, no, Harwin, don't bet him. I'm like, no, don't do that to him. Let him Suntan, let him hang himself. Because I got him on video betting me about multiple things. But then he'd come on here and say he don't bet. So this to show you the disingenuous nature of this devil. He's disingenuous. He's a devil. He's not here to teach nobody nothing. He will disagree with you just to disagree and not have a clue what you're talking about. But if you put his feet to the fire and challenge him right on the spot, tell him put some money on it, or say something wild like this. Say, if I'm wrong, I can't come back on sa.neter show. And if you're wrong, you can't come back ever. And watch what he do.
That's hilarious.
And he know what it is. I don't care if he watching me and him be going back and forth about 10 years. I'll cook you, dude.
Also for the presentation, the definition.
Killer.
Man, he know what it is. Hey, God Energy, check your back check.
No doubt, brother. So the definition for Black people, right? The accepted definition for Black people fit what we are talking about. The very definition for Black people in the realm of scholarship applies to Aboriginal Australians, applies to Melanesians, applies to Dravidians, as well as Africans and African descendants. So we were also taking the time to highlight the genetics behind these things from the very definition of Black people that you could find on Wikipedia.
I'm should be cool with that. He uses Wikipedia all the time.
All right, enough about him, because if we do that, he wins. You know what's good, Cosmic? What's good? Oh, that's my big brother in the building.
Peace.
That's the big bro.
Big brother Cosmic.
Hey, peace, man. Good to see you, man. Yo, that was a dope presentation. Like I said, man, I always learn whenever I see you, brothers and sisters, because the Queen, when you up and out here doing your thing. I was in and out, so I couldn't catch everything. I was at a function, but I really did enjoy how you brought context to the development of the skin tones from the phenotypes. That part of the conversation was pretty interesting. Like you broke it down to exactly how they would have switched, because it is known in the scientific community that the Caucasians were African or dark skinned about 10,000 years ago. I mean, they had looked at themselves. And so then what you just basically did was present on screen the mutation from dark skin, the dark skinned phenotype to the dark skin to the lighter skin. So that was pretty dope. Just came up here to say, appreciate all of you, appreciate your research, appreciate your spirit, appreciate your study. You know what I'm saying? You all holding it down, holding it strong. And so I'm just glad I know you brothers and sisters. That's it.
Let me just say one thing. When people come on here and you did that presentation, you should let them understand that you can't just say anything. They have to bring forth a presentation. Critique and criticism is not the same thing. Critique means you go into actual information and bring forth opposing scholarship. Not, I don't agree with you because I don't agree with you. So you have to hold them to the fire and say, we stood on here for 2 hours presenting something. You just came up here with some arbitrary nonsense. Let them know they cannot do that. Bring forth the presentation, review what you said, and do it properly. Or else they're just going to keep talking and talking and talking, because you put a lot of work into that. And the respect should be that they should put some work into what they're saying, not just talking and wanting to be right. You understand what I'm saying? And then wanting to be right, some of them are just wrong because they're not taking the time to read the documents and go through the documents as you did. But they're arguing about Kemet in Africa, never read a blasted document in their entire life to even show you what it says. So
that was a ton of work. It wasn't just a lot of work. That was a ton of work.
I know. So you have to hold them to the fire and say, you can't just come on here and never read a document from none of the sources that you're talking about, but argue with me about something that I'm showing you. And teach them the difference between a primary, a secondary, and commentary. Because a lot of people don't know the difference. They bring forth a translation and tell you they're reading the text. That is not how it works. You must show the original and then you show a translation, and that is where you're getting into dealing with primary documents. You should do a show explaining to people what primaries mean, what primaries look like. A lot of never seen one in their life. So keep doing what you're doing, brothers and sisters.
Peace, peace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get Asar MK.
From my young brother Asar Ware. Yes, gentlemen, ladies, y'all got busy tonight. Don't let nobody deter you from black. We super black. You see like an uncovered patch of midnight behind me and on me. You understand? Especially when they pseudo and ain't really got no sources. You see these cats in warfare, they don't have no real sources. What y'all brought tonight was dynamic. It was clean. It's stuff I've spoken on before. Studio Pigia, as they say. That big booty, which has always been a sign. You see it on Mother Nana. When you look at her clay figure, you see all that stuff. So don't let anyone deter you from the blackness. Because yes, it's a social construct, but it's also a feature of the human being. And as long as we have social injustices behind it, then it's definitely something that we need to address. As long as we can historically trace our people using it first, not someone putting it on us, as you've seen the work from me, Reggie, Smash, and there's a whole slew of departments that's working on that, then you go forth and you use that. It's more than just the soil. Because Kemet means black land. Kemet also means black man and one man. So they need to understand. So pick your talk. You understand? And keep putting that. It's just another case of that OBTA. Y'all know what it is. Keep putting that belt on them behind until they fall in line. Because you know what it is. Y'all going in. I expect Harwin to be throwing some joints with y'all. But this is Brother Jabari, Harwin. But yeah, keep going. Y'all keep going in. Y'all keep going in. Stand down. I told you these young guns ain't playing. Y'all know what it is. And yo, you know, you're only missing your man Humble right now, but it is what it is. You ain't really missing him. He just on different shows and stuff. So y'all keep going in. Keep banging these cats out. Their ears to or from your mouth to our ears. You know what I'm saying? You're becoming a new lineage, that next line. And we salute you for sure. I'm in the truck. I know.
I say, man.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
My brother Asar, you know I rock with you, man. You're one of my favorites.
Yes. You on mute. Issa.
Oh, I was just saying thank you, and peace to you, brother. I appreciated it.
Yes, man. This has been a great build. Go ahead, God G. I know you got some more information. Let me make a call.
Oh, I'm chilling right now. You know what I mean? I'm just getting my mind wrapped around this Dravidian thing. That's what I'm on to next. I already got the People of Arabia presentation done. So we're going to talk about the blackness of Arabia. We're going to drop that. And then I feel like the Dravidians would be a good one.
Bro.
What happened?
I said, you going to go into the Nabateans and the Sabians, bro?
Oh, the Nabateans and the Sabians a little bit. Just a little bit. Maybe with the script. I might get into the Sabian script with the Islam presentation, and then talk about the southern Arab tribes like the Himyarite, the Sabians, Kingdom of Saba, and all of that. So just a little something. But I feel like the Dravidians would be a good follow-up to Arabia because, you have the Somalian, Arabian, Dravidian phenotypes, right? Because the South Arabian was described as looking like an intermediate between the Somalian and the Dravidian. So,
for sure.
I'm gonna see how we gonna release the information, but what y'all saw today was a sample of what I'm gonna bring in my Dravidian presentation. And Harwin knew where I was going with this because there's a Niger-Congo and Mandi connection with Sumerian and Dravidian. So you can put Sumerian, Dravidian, and certain African languages in a loose language family. And throw Elamite in there as well, right? Sumerian, Elamite, and Dravidian on one end, and Niger, Congo, Dravidian, and Sumerian on another end.
God energy. I would say this: the entire Greenberg model needs to be dismantled and redone.
I could agree with that.
The whole thing.
So yeah, man, definitely be on the lookout for that presentation by the brother God Energy. I'm definitely going to put be looking out. Also, I'm going to be putting out this occultism bill where we just going in on how westernized occultism and metaphysics has leaked into the Black community. So I'm gonna be going in on that. That's gonna be a straight bill. Be looking out for that. Issa Queen, you got anything we should be on the lookout for? You went on mute again. There you go.
Sorry, I'm having issues. Yeah, and I want to do evolution 101/102, where I'm going to go into the human evolution because I don't hear enough people talking about it. I'm also getting into early migrations of the mitochondrial DNA and the early women and their movements and things like that. I'm definitely going to try to do another completed presentation on the woman and the history of us and understanding our social political standpoint within all four corners of this earth. And yeah, that's about it. So evolution, look out for evolution one, look out for a woman's build, and that's about it.
All right, who want to close us out and get us all the way out of here, man?
Well, y'all getting out of here?
Yeah, finna get out of here, man. I feel like I gotta get out of here. I gotta run. Side knocked out. So I'm gonna get out of here, man. But
well, I just like to say to y'all, great presentation. Keep up the good work. And Issa Queen, God Energy, y'all keep up the good work. Because I'm gonna tell y'all, when y'all be doing stuff, you best believe your last penny that I be going behind y'all taking. I always do, and it comes out even. So I be like, okay, you guys just don't make stuff up. So, I understand that, and as an elder man, I love that because y'all can teach me just as much as I can teach y'all wisdom, how to be, wise and be patient with people like who's going to do that. And y'all sort of have that embedded in y'all. God Energy has it. Issa Queen has it. And you too, I say. I don't know why Humble don't come back on that.
He be around.
Keep doing it. Y'all teaching. Because this thing been going around the conscious community. This argument been going around for the longest, man. They want to just swear up and down that Black people ain't got nothing to do with Africa. And I mean, stuff the greatness of it and things of that nature. So, let's keep living and learning, y'all.
I say under that.
Oh yeah, and I got you down there. I used to Queen. I got you on board. So if somebody send you something good, but if they don't, we'll catch you next time.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Cosmic Sankofa, man, close us out, man. Let us know we should be on the lookout from you as well.
Yeah, I ain't seen Sankofa in a while.
Yeah, I've been in the lab working on this little project I've been having for a little minute. But yo, just keep up the build. I definitely, each time you all go on, I'm definitely watching, because each time every one of you speak, I'm learning something about, from the information. Just appreciate you, and then keep it going, keep building, keep spreading that knowledge and information.
Peace.
Appreciate it, brother.
And anybody else before we get out of here? Anybody else want to get any last words in before we get out of here?
Yeah, good presentation again.
I appreciate everybody for coming out. I thank y'all for really being able to especially Ashe and God Energy. I appreciate y'all for helping me with this idea that I had. I really do appreciate y'all, and that's about it.
No doubt about that.
You ain't gonna. I know Unc over there making up a make believe video about what's going on. So I might tip over there and hear him just spur some of the,
It's all right.
He should have waited till this stream was done at least, so we don't split the viewership. You know what I'm saying? So should have let this one ride out and then go live.
Yeah, that was weird for the brand. That was weird.
And he couldn't wait to do it because he didn't have nothing to say here. So he gonna have a lot to say there.
Yeah, that's why we won't be you won't catch me there. But man, we out of here, man. We are always coming with the facts. So
peace.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Bomb squad. Bomb squad. Let's go. I got the facts, I got the truth. I got the facts, I got the truth. But you got nothing. The shit. Yeah. The sheer velocity of my animosity will properly destroy your philosophy. You crossing me with mediocrity, my full autonomy of my armory will blow veins, blood vessels, and arteries. So don't target me to admonish me, cause honestly, you don't have the mental archery to stop the slaughtery. Possibly you might survive the atrocity, but it's more probably you will be issuing apologies. You lose to my policy of my camaraderie. So follow me. I got a nation of millions breaking your dealings, forsaking you villains, raising your ceilings, casing your buildings while you chasing your feelings. Bomb squad, let's go.